Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of luscious things with microphones because I am a ring announcer and cage announcer for all kinds of wonderful, fantastic combat sports promotions. And we're doing a podcast tonight. And I'm joined, as I always am, by my two other co-hosts, both of whom I would say bring MMA punditry to new heights. I try to say that every week like I'm saying it for the first time.
I respect your commitment to sticking with it every single week.
Introducing
30
first.
plus episodes.
That's right.
And it makes me feel like I need to live up to it every week. Like I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to try to bring it to new heights yet again.
To new heights. I'm
I don't know
surprised
if
that
I've
no one
actually
has
done it one time in
Out of-
134 weeks, but 135 is the charm.
I'm
I've
surprised
taken
that
it facetiously every single time.
out of all the episodes we've done, we've never gotten a comment where somebody's like, "These motherfuckers don't bring MMA punditry to new heights." It's definitely medium heights.
No, we just have a chooch every now and again calling us casuals, like if we haven't watched the
Yeah,
sport
right.
for over a decade.
Yes,
If not
yes.
that. Okay, introducing first in New York, Mark Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
Oh, I thought we did this already. How did I just start talking? You didn't introduce me.
I didn't. It's all right. It's organic. It's organic.
Nothing much. Nothing much. I'm ready to go. It's a late night. I got to be up early as fuck to go to the city tomorrow. But we have a lot to talk about, and we have a fucking massive pay-per-view, and we're going to give you guys a full card preview for the first time in a minute because we have a card that is worthy of it. So, yeah, ready to get into this thing.
Yeah, man. And introducing, he is in Florida, the Sunshine State. He is the Nicaraguan Nightmare. Umar Artola. What's up, buddy? What's new in your world?
Just doing a lot of training still. I guess that's not really new, but there it is.
It's not new at all.
I have started training a little bit more with guys on the fight team. Been holding pads for them a lot more, and they've been reciprocating. So that's been cool. Yeah, trained just over 4 hours today. So that was
fun. Wow, you are a madman.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. We were just saying before we started recording, and we should just always just start recording so that we can just save the banter for the beginning of the episode. But Umar is being nudged, not just by us, but also by his coaches at his gym at Tampa Muay Thai, that he should eventually take a fight. And I'm all for it, man.
Wife
but
nudges me too.
There you go. And I'm saying I hope the matchmakers do their job well and match him up with a worthy 0-0 opponent as well, because if he goes up against an 0-0 opponent who is not on his level and doesn't train as much as him, then Umar is going to fuck someone up real bad.
Chances are I might do something like a smoker before I do an amateur fight. I don't know if you guys know what a smoker is, but
sure do.
I might do one of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, makes sense.
What's going on with me is that my wife is out of town at a conference, and I have been solo parenting for a couple days, which is great because it's exactly what my wife does every time I travel to do a ring announcing gig. So it's all fair. It's all boys in the house. Okay, enough with the small talk. In this episode, we have quite a bit to get through, quite a chunk to bite off in the MMA world. We're going to start off talking about the few of the fights from this past weekend's fantastic one card. 166 went down Friday, March 1st in Qatar, also called One Qatar, I believe. Malykhin, Tang, Brooks, Pacio. Fantastic stuff from one here. Then we're going to dive into the UFC Fight Night card from this past weekend. UFC Fight Night Rozenstruik versus Gaziev. Talking about the main card fights from that fight night. We're going to find out who rose and who has fallen in Mark's rankings that he updates weekly on the heels of UFC fights. We're going to find out what's going on in the world of MMA outside of the cage with our segment Inside the MMA Sphere with Umar. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend's phenomenal pay-per-view card, UFC 299. Oh my goodness. UFC 299 going down in Miami, Florida, headlined by Sean O'Malley putting up his bantamweight title in a rematch against Marlon Chito Vera. Before we get into any fight talk, gentlemen, let us first address our audience. If you guys are watching this on YouTube right now, oh my God, thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you guys for watching, for liking, for subscribing, and for leaving comments down below. If you want audio only, we got you there. We can join you on your commute or while you're doing some dishes on any podcast app where you get your podcasts. And of course, find us on social media at @andnew_MMA show in all the places. I kept it short this time because we've got a lot to get through, and let's get to it. This week, gentlemen, the name on the marquee has got to be Anatoly Malykhin, who this past Friday defeated Reiner de Ridder, becoming the one championship middleweight champion and the first three-weight champ in all of combat sports and all of MMA, or has that been done before by somebody else?
First simultaneous three-weight champ in major promotion history. Yes.
Okay. And let's talk about this real quick, the significance of this. Anatoly Malykhin, he is the one heavyweight champ, one light heavyweight champ, and one middleweight champ. And he dropped down this past weekend and faced Reiner de Ridder and took the middleweight champ from de Ridder. And he also took the light heavyweight championship from de Ridder as well. Mark, start us off. You watched the fight. After 3 rounds, or in the third round, rather, Malykhin overwhelms de Ridder and takes the middleweight title as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just to clarify quick, I didn't realize when you posed it to me that you mentioned all combat sports. I know it's first ever in MMA. I couldn't tell you all combat sports. There could be others.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
in
that's
that
what
regard.
I didn't. Yeah, obviously in boxing, there's like 8 or 9 division champs.
Yeah. But yeah, Anatoly Malykhin is a cyborg. I mean, he's just a handful, and especially for de Ridder, who can't really hang with him in the striking. And he did his best. He certainly came into this one with a much better game plan than he did the first fight between the two of them. He really did do a decent job of keeping Malykhin off him early. He made Malykhin work a lot harder for his entries. He found a lot of entries himself into the clinch to kind of give himself a chance to find something, which he didn't even really have that chance the first fight. Granted, he never could. He couldn't get Malykhin down. But even so, I thought he did well to prevent himself from being cornered and bombarded like Malykhin likes to do against the cage. He even dropped Malykhin at one point with that little jab calf kick combo that kind of knocked him off balance. That was nice to see. And maybe worst case, he figured, like, I'm going to survive into these later rounds. We're going to get into round 4. We're going to get into round 5. And I'm going to see where Anatoly's cardio is at. And then maybe the takedowns are going to come then. And he was kind of on his way to making that game plan work. I mean, Malykhin was stepping it up as the fight went on. In round 2, he started to get more and more dialed in. Some of those swarms started to come, body shots, dirty boxing. He was wearing on RDR. And again, it seemed like it was going all right for RDR, but I guess he was getting worn on way more than it even looked like, because then in early round 3, we get that odd finish where he shoots and he gets stuffed and Malykhin gets on top. But even then, I'm like, oh, okay, grappling opportunity here for de Ridder. Like, let's see what happens. And yeah, a few punches are landing from Malykhin, and the one knee did land, but even the knee didn't seem to affect RDR that much in the moment. And then Malykhin decides to separate and stand up, and RDR is just sitting there. And then he doesn't get up. And it was very weird. Like, you're like, wait, like, that's it? He's not going to get up. So I can't believe that's how that thing ended. It didn't there was no like obvious moment for us as fans to be like, oh, I get it, why he's not getting up here. It was just one of those ones where I guess he really got worn on and he didn't have much left. So odd finish, but either way, as we said, we have our first ever simultaneous 3-division champ in a major promotion. And I know it's one, which isn't too stacked in the heavier weight classes. So we have to be fair about that. And also it's a little bit easier with the rehydration in one because the weight classes are 205, 225 and heavyweight. So everything's a little closer together there. But as much as I'm going to give you those facts, just because they are the facts, and I feel like we have to say those things, I'm also going to tell you that it is an incredible achievement either way, and that Anatoly Malykhin probably deserves more of a spotlight in MMA than he's even getting right now. So, huge night for him.
Umar, let's bring you in here. What were your thoughts of how this fight plays out with Malykhin seemingly overwhelming and accumulating damage on RDR throughout the fight to the point where RDR basically, it's almost like he retires, but that's obviously when it's in the middle of rounds, but it was like he retired during like a break in the action.
Yeah.
He was like, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. He was done. I mean, the fight didn't go very well for him. It did look like he put a lot more work into his training as far as his body was concerned. He looked like, and I think Mark alluded to it before, he looked much more in shape, much more athletic in general while he was in there. But the problem is Malykhin is a tank, right? Like the other thing that I think he's really underrated for is his footwork. His footwork is fucking phenomenal. That dude's has a base under him at all times for the most part. He was off base a couple times here and there after De Ridder cut a couple angles. He got caught bull charging, got matadored a little bit, but that was very few and far between. But I think what I really loved about his footwork is that he was able to cut off De Ridder in almost every regard. There were a few times where De Ridder ended up against the cage, and I don't think he ended up wanting to be there, let alone even realized that's where he was. But he was kind of lulled into that spot. And De Ridder played a game where he waited a little too much. I think he's, again, relying too much on a takedown on a guy who's very possibly not going to get taken down by you. And pulling guard is a dangerous game against a guy who can beat on you from top. And so I just don't think there were a lot of avenues there for De Ridder, and he just looked really uncomfortable in there. Less so maybe than the first round, and I think that had to do more with his physical preparation for that fight. But in the end, man, you can't walk back the entire fight and not suffer the consequences from a cardio perspective, but also from a mental perspective as well. Malykhin walked him down the entire fight and just absolutely brutalized him towards the end. To be honest, man, once he got on top, those shots may not have looked like clean, like, you know what I mean? Like nothing. Those shots look like they sucked. Like, I not necessarily blaming homeboy from being like, you know what? I'm not getting the takedown here. Pulling the Gaziev, if you will, right? Can't do much. Call it quits.
Okay, here is a question. Well, it's really a question for Mark, but Omar, feel free to contribute as well. So Malykhin now, he stays undefeated as a professional. His 6th consecutive win under the one championship banner. So he's now 14-0. All 14 of his fights, he has won by a finish. Okay? It is 4th consecutive title fight for one. He's won all of them. He's finished all of them. As you just alluded to a moment ago, obviously compared to other promotions, especially in MMA, you might say that one is not on the same level overall talent-wise. And obviously he's only been with one for 6 fights. And before that, he had 8 other fights in other promotions, other smaller promotions, of course. But 14-0 is 14-0. And 14 finishes is 14 finishes. Have you considered where you would put Malykhin in your heavyweight rankings? I mean, he has 3 titles in 3 different weight classes, but where would you fit him in terms of the rankings that as you see them in the UFC?
Dude, I mean, it's fairly impossible to say because there's no points of comparison to like none of these guys that he has beaten outside of the only real one is Arjun Buller, who did have a short time in the UFC, wasn't able to do much. He was kind of, I mean, he could have done more. There was some contractual thing where they ended up just letting him go. But even so, he didn't make many waves when he was here. De Ritter's never fought any of these guys in Bellator and PFL, or he's never crossed paths with any of these guys. So it's really hard to make a point of comparison. Like, do I think he is a top 10 UFC heavyweight? I don't know that I'm ready to say that. Again, just simply because of the caliber of opponent. Do I think he could beat guys beyond that level? Yeah, probably. Like, I think he's I mean, let's who's ranked heavyweights right now, because heavyweight ain't that deep.
I'm gonna be honest, man. If I just thinking about the main event that happened this past weekend, I kind of think Malykhin chews the two of them up, to be honest.
Think he beats Rozenstruik, man?
I do. And
wow.
And full disclosure, we're gonna get to this fight.
So it works with what I'm saying.
Rozenstruik, actually, that's probably one of the better versions of Rozenstruik I've seen as far as a total game was concerned. You know, he didn't get again, we'll get there, but I do say that, not trying to shit on Rozenstruik. I thought that was a fantastic performance he had this weekend. I just think Malykhin is just athletically, I just think he's better. And I just think his pace and his footwork allow him to walk dudes down. And he can definitely beat Rozenstruik in a contest of power, because that dude cracks.
To me, top of my head, without him having proven anything more yet, I think I'd be slotting him in around the bottom of the UFC rankings, like toward that number 14, 15 area. I don't think I'm ready to say he's better than like a Jairzinho or Rozenstruik. But point is, we're debating it. He may very well be. And it's, as fans, it's a little bit of a shame that we may not get this answer. I mean, how old is Anatoly Malykhin while we're having this conversation quickly?
That's a great question.
38.
That's what I thought.
Wow.
He's 36. Yeah, I thought he was up there. So this emergence is a little bit late. I mean, for a heavyweight, I guess it's not the end of the world.
Well, by Mike's standards, he's half dead. So,
but to kind of blend into the idea of who he would fight next, this is sort of where I was going to go with this. It's like the level that he has hit right now, taking out 3 of your champions, holding all these belts at once, and you made the decision to let him do it, to say, you know what, yeah, I know you have 2 of our belts locked up, put those on hold and go get a third. Like, you allowed all this to happen. If you're one, you have allowed him to become this like mega star over there, and you don't really have anyone ready for him to fight in any of these weight classes. Like, Ali Akbari just beat Arjun Buller on this card. He's probably the number 1 contender at heavyweight now. Heavyweight's probably the easiest to sell, just because you're like, look at this huge guy that he has to go against. But like, Malykhin already knocked him out. Like, there's not really anyone interesting. So I almost feel like their best course of action is to try to look outside the organization and set up some kind of super fight. We haven't really seen one do that. Obviously, we've seen like Ryzen do that with their connection with Bellator. Now we have PFL and Bellator merging. So you never know what could come. But it just feels like there's nothing, or maybe one could sign someone I'm trying to think who's even floating out there, like a Dos Santos or some shit like that, if you ever convince him to do it, like just for the name. But based on the guys on their roster, it doesn't feel like they have anyone who is even worth booking against Malykhin right now. So it's an odd scenario.
Yeah, man. Omar, any other thoughts you want to contribute to that conversation?
I mean, it's a valid point. I think his, as much as we love one, the name value and the recognition that he's going to get there from the opponents that he has is probably never going to get him to a place where his resume will, I think, properly reflect where he should be in the MMA rankings, what I think he could potentially do against guys who are in the top of the world rankings, if you will, or the even UFC rankings, PFL rankings, that kind of deal. I'm interested to see what the future looks like for Malykhin, because obviously contracts eventually come to an end, but it would be interesting to see him against some of these top guys.
He seems very married to one. Like
Yeah.
he is in love with being in one.
Sure.
He
He's a star.
says it constantly. So
We'll see how long one has, man. Those rumors haven't really gone away. You know what I mean? They haven't gotten worse. But they haven't gone away.
Yeah. But, you wonder if he thinks about what I just said. Like if they start coming to him with, how about you fight this guy? And he's like, that doesn't really seem so fun. So then you wonder if it'll happen for him where he's like, can't you guys get me something better? So people can see how good I am. So you're right. You never know how this develops.
Yeah. So it's the second time that Malykhin has faced Reiner de Ritter, and at both times he has taken gold from RDR. RDR is going to call the cops and be like, somebody come arrest this man. He keeps taking my stuff like a bully.
The shine comes off him a little bit of the man who used to say that he would tap Adesanya if he had the chance.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
styles make fights. But that being said,
yes.
In terms of that, yes, Anatoly Malykhin definitely has a style that tops Reiner de Ritter, and he's his daddy, man. He's his daddy. That being said, where does Anatoly Malykhin go from here, Mark? What is next for him?
I mean, that's what we just talked through, was it not?
Okay, fine. All right. That being said, let's move on to the co-main event of 166 in Qatar. In the featherweight division, Tang gets it done over Thanh Le by TKO in the third round. The official time 4:48 of round 3. Mark, start us off here. Give us your take of how this fight played out.
Yeah, so Thanh Le did switch things up. I thought he might. He switched it up very obviously right away because he came out in southpaw. He took that lead leg away for Tang to kick since he tore it to pieces in their first fight, and it did take Kai a little bit to adjust. Both guys got warned for inactivity early. You could tell each of them was kind of trying to figure out how they wanted to play things. And on that note, one is a little OD, man. Like, it's literally like, oh, and Tang busts his nose open, blood is leaking. You need to work. Like, what? Like
yeah,
they're like very all over them. It's wild. But yeah, Kai did a really good job of pressuring in this fight, of trying to cut Thanh Le off. Lee was kind of trying to play the opposite game of trying to invite him in a lot and looking to counter and then looking to rush forward with his typical blitzes like we always see from him. And he was having some success, but you got to give Kai credit, man. He is hard to hit. He sees shots so well. He rolls with them well. And God, he's so fast, both in and out of range in terms of how he's disappeared as Lee would be throwing strikes, and also with his hands. And it was a combination of both of those things that led to the finish, because he just stepped in with a lightning quick right hand. Lee didn't even really react to it, and he just got dropped, and he was dazed, couldn't shake it off, and had to eat a few more shots, and that was it. So Tang solidifies it, 2-0 now against Thanh Le, and he is clearly the best featherweight in one.
Umar, your thoughts of the fight?
So I caught the ending of this fight. I did not watch the lead up to this fight, or the lead up to the finish, I should say. What I can tell you is that right hand that knocked Lee all the way out. That right hand had landed like 5 times before that.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, homeboy didn't move his fucking face out of the way to literally save his life. He got hit multiple times and like clean with heavy hands, backed him into the fence, pushed him around, and then just the one just got through to a perfect spot. It was almost obviously like he was, inching his way forward, calculating the shot. By the 5th or 6th right hand in that sequence, I mean, it landed right on the button and just dropped him. I mean, his whole body just went right noodle on the floor.
Yep.
Agree. That's something that I picked up as well throughout this fight. I thought that right hand was landing. And in the third round, it was enough to put him out. And I thought that Tang seemed to be having just a power and strength advantage over Thanh throughout the fight. He was to me evidently the stronger man.
I think it was definitely a speed thing, man. It just looked like he didn't.
Sure, that too.
It didn't look like he reacted when Tang was throwing. Like it almost like didn't register until the punch was basically by his face. You know what I mean? He was just evidently slower.
He looked a little slower than usual.
Yeah.
So moving this thing along,
and he's getting old, so it's not surprising.
So back-to-back wins over Thanh has Tang now a 12-fight win streak as well. Mark, what is next for the reigning one featherweight? And by the way, just to remind our audience, for one featherweight is 155 pounds. What is next for the reigning featherweight champ, Tang?
I think Gary Tonin has earned it, man. I know Thanh finished him a couple years ago, but he has won 3 straight since, 3 straight submissions. He's 9-1 overall. Obviously, he's a name. I think he deserves that shot, and I think that's a cool style clash between him and Tang.
Nice. Omar, what do you think for the man whose record improves to 19-2, now 8-0 under the one banner?
I just like to stick with Mark's decisions when it comes to ONE FC and Bellator. I don't go deep on these rosters, man. There's a lot of dudes. I don't know what's happening over there.
Okay, last one we're going to talk about for one here. Was their first of 3 title fights in the strawweight division. Another rematch, and Joshua. Is it? I keep trying to think of how they said it. How Ray Flores was saying it. Pacio. Pacio.
Yeah. There was one guy who was saying it like a SH. Usually
Pacio.
I feel like I hear Pacio, but one guy was saying Pacio.
Well, because his nickname is the Passion.
All right. Maybe I hear American people say
Pacio,
and they don't know what they're talking about.
Pacio.
So Pacio, I guess.
He defeats Jared Brooks by DQ because Jared Brooks, about not even a minute into the fight,
It's savage.
Jared Brooks was looking like he was on his way to another dominant performance using his wrestling. Scrambles, gets Pacio's back, and then doesn't know the rule set for one, because he picks up Pacio.
I mean, same in UFC.
What's that?
Same thing in UFC.
Really?
Is it not? You can't spike a dude on top of his head.
You can't spike somebody on their head, man.
Isn't that what happened to Thug Rose?
No, that was
it wasn't the same because Rose was holding on to Jessica, whereas
and it was here.
Yeah, but even still, that was Rose could have let go and she would have been fine. I wouldn't DQ'd Jessica for this. This one, this crazy asshole had this poor man locked up super tight. That dude wasn't going nowhere, and just smashed his head right into the ground. I mean,
it looked real bad. It looked real bad.
Yeah,
it's one of the worst slams on a head you'll see in a fight. I'm really, really glad that Joshua Pacio is okay in terms of his head and his neck and his spine. That being said,
to be honest, when it happened, I was like, "Oh, one's crazy. I didn't know this was allowed." And then it wasn't.
That's reasonable to assume because one allows knees and kicks to the head, right, on the ground opponents.
Yeah, right. True.
Okay, Mark, give us your impressions. Not a ton to react to here, but for the less than a minute that this fight transpired, what were your thoughts on how it played out and how it ended?
Yeah, it was tough for Jared Brooks, man. I mean, it's the right call. You can't spike someone on their head, and he did. But obviously he didn't do it intentionally. It's just the way that it happened. He even, when Herb said it to him, he's like, "No, I didn't. I dropped him on his shoulder, like, watch the thing." And Herb was like, "Oh, we're going to watch the thing." And obviously it didn't go so well.
Dude, Herb was on it.
But yeah, it's tough for him because he was looking great early. He's so fast, had a beautiful back take. Of course, this monster slam. And then he thinks he won by knockout and he's celebrating. And then there's a lot of emotions that he ended up having to work through there. And his belt is obviously gone. It's going back to Pacio on a DQ. So it's a pretty wild outcome. You would assume we're going to have to do this a third time. If they gave Pacio a rematch from the first one, they're certainly going to have to give Brooks a rematch after a DQ. But yeah, tough result. And hopefully Pacio's okay.
Omar, any other thoughts on that?
I don't want to be that guy. But
Okay.
like I feel like I have to mention it because when you fail a smell test somewhere, I feel like you got to say something, right? And there's just some tickles, right? Like
What are you talking about?
I feel like Jared Brooks might have been on some shit. You know what I mean?
What are you talking about?
Jared Brooks looked all the way amped up in there, like
He did.
4 or 5 pre-workout scoops deep kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
Like he was on something, man. So that's number one. And then the rapid emotional decline, just messing with the, you know what I mean? It just gives me a little tickle there. I'm not trying to say anything, but the smell test for me just didn't work out. That's all.
People say this about Malykhin too. People raise a lot of questions about what's going on in one.
That rage though, that monkey god had, just a lot of rage in that boy.
I mean, he's the monkey god. He rages.
Is it a monkey king?
Holy shit.
Monkey king.
Too much rage.
Monkey god, isn't it?
It's the monkey god.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not the monkey king. It is the monkey god.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, tough one for him.
It sure is, man. It sure is. So I guess we don't really need to say like, oh, what's next for Joshua Pacio, because they're most likely going to run this back, right?
You would have to imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, and that does it for
Josh, you would think is like, I don't feel like the champion. I'm going to need to try this again.
Totally. It's not the way I want to win, right? Not the way I want to win the belt back.
Yeah.
I guess that does it for our recap of 166. But to your point before, Marcus, I want to say real quick, you're absolutely right that one is on something with the pushing the pace. I feel like Herb Dean is like a different Herb Dean watching him referee a one fight.
Yeah.
Like you watch Herb ref UFC and he's like the most laid back guy. But in one, he's like, you have to engage. And he's not like occasionally reminding them. He's like on them.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? I think it might be, Omar, do you think it's the Muay Thai influence? Because one is also a major promoter of Muay Thai. And that basically is what would you say? Like the ethos of Muay Thai? Like Muay Thai, pressure and aggression and moving forward is like the hallmark of Muay Thai. Like it's not that you're not allowed to evade or move back, but you're docked points for that. Are you not in Muay Thai? For like evading a lot?
You're docked points for inactivity for sure. I don't know, man. It's very possible that their rule set is obviously somewhat unique, right? They do their own thing. They're not using unified rules. So it's very possible that their specific rule set on inactivity and yellow card usage and that kind of stuff is just very specific to them. And maybe that's why Herb Dean acts the way he acts, because he's just following the guidelines of their rules.
Oh, totally. Yeah. 100%.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. If he was able to whip out yellow cards in the UFC, I'm sure he'd do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the episode given our time tonight and the amount we have to get through, but just to touch on it real quick, whenever I watch one, I have to say I am tickled by the whole yellow card and red card thing, and I kind of like it.
I'd love it.
Like it.
Curious what you guys think of it. You don't like it?
Oh
no, I don't. There might be a happy middle ground.
Yeah,
like they will literally like he throws a left, he throws a right, they reset. Yellow card. Like.
Oh well, yeah,
dude. I thought that about the Arjan Buller fight, which was right before the Pacio Brooks fight. And like Herb, I was like, dude, if this was a UFC fight, it would just be like, man, Arjan Buller is having a hard time figuring out how to fight this giant.
Yeah.
But Herb was like, don't care. If he is a giant, that's your problem to figure out, not mine.
Even the announcers, like I felt like the Kai Lee fight was like pretty solid action. Like if we were describing that fight as a UFC fight, we would have been like, yeah, like pretty active fight. And the announcers are like, man, every time Lee moves forward, Kai just moves back. And every time Kai moves forward, Lee just moves back. And it's like, well, like, what do you want him to fucking do? Like, they're not going to stand there and get hit. Like,
right.
I don't know. I don't love it.
Okay. Well, let's move on over now to the UFC side of things. This past weekend, Saturday night, UFC Fight Night. Rozenstruik versus Gaziev went down at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. And let's start with the headliners, guys. Heavyweights, Jairzinho Rozenstruik gets it done over Shamil. And by the way, it's not Gaziev. They were saying Gaziev.
We were fucking up.
Gaziev, or like Gaziev, or like, it's basically almost like a silent E in there. Gaziev, like Fazeev.
Yeah.
So Rozenstruik TKOs Gaziev in the at the end of the fourth round, or really in between the fourth and fifth round. And Goddard was on this one. He was on the scene like fucking Dick Tracy.
Yeah, he was.
Between those rounds. And we'll get to that. Mark, I'll let you start this one off. Give us your take of Rozenstruik getting it done by TKO.
Rozenstruik, good at jab. Gaziev, bad at defend jab. Breakdown over.
Thank you, Mark.
I mean, really, like this wasn't great for Gaziev, man. It really wasn't. It's not how you want to showcase yourself when the UFC goes ahead and gives you a main event slot, only one fight in. He didn't look good. And I don't want to overly hate on the guy, but like the visual here reminded me of one of those movies where you see like the smaller skilled fighter and he's fighting the giant dude who like doesn't know how to talk and he just smashes things and like he gets beat by the time it's over. Like it's kind of what this looked like. Gaziev was huge and he's like this intimidating presence walking at you, but he kind of just looked like a brute in there against a guy who was a high level kickboxer in Rozenstruik. And once Rozenstruik stuffed a couple takedowns, which is a nice new wrinkle in his game, by the way, so good for him. Apparently he's been working with King Mo, so that's nice to see. But once that happened, Gaziev just kind of gassed. And by round 3, it already didn't look like he had much left by the start of round 3. And he was just getting his face jabbed off. Like the guy's hands are never up. He leans his head forward, begging for it to be jabbed. Like he puts it out there, like, please jab me. And Rozenstruik was like, cool, that works for me. I'll do exactly that. And that's pretty much what the entire fight broke down to. A couple stuffed takedowns, bad cardio for Gaziev, and horrible job defending the jab. So a nice performance for Rozenstruik in a main event spotlight and a rough performance for Gaziev.
Omar, your thoughts of the power jab by the heavyweight kickboxer in Rozenstruik?
Yeah, power jab might be a little bit of an overstatement. It was an effective jab. It was a consistent jab. Apparently Mohamed Lawal was the one, King Mo, for those of you unaware, was the one who kept encouraging Rozenstruik to just stick that jab out there and just keep working that jab, which if you've ever seen King Mo fight, it's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that I enjoyed the most about this fight, because to be honest, early on was pretty heavyweighty, sloppy, the things that I generally don't tend to like about heavyweight fights. But once we got into like the good chunk of like that third round, that was really where Rozenstruik really started to turn it up, had beautiful combinations, kicks to the leg, punches to the body. And Gaziev at that point was pretty messed up. Cardio obviously had failed him, beginning of the second round? I mean, he had one solid round in him, and then he was pretty much done. Credit to him, though, for pushing through, because when you're that tired, just being there is not where you want to be. I think he proved that at the end of the fourth round. But it was a great performance from Rozenstruik more than anything. I don't want to take anything away from Rozenstruik by what ended up happening at the end of this fight, but Rozenstruik, I thought, fought a great fight, stuffed some good takedowns in that fight, really showed a good acumen when it came to the clinch. And to be honest, I thought it was the best Rozenstruik we've seen in a long time. The KOs and things like that, catching people and knocking people on their asses, that's all well and good, but these are the fights that you really get to learn about what these dudes are made out of, and I thought Rozenstruik made a great accounting of himself.
Okay, so let's talk about this finish. Like I said before, referee Mark Goddard, Detective Mark Goddard, I should say, was hot on the case after that fourth round. I believe the action was about to begin again, but they called like a timeout during the timeout, or like between, you know what I mean?
There was just a lot of
Because
commotion.
His eye.
Yeah,
And Mark Goddard, I wrote it down when I watched it. When I watched it back, I wrote down what he said. So I have this transcribed. He goes, "He's not telling me what he's saying to the corner. I want to." He goes, "I want to know." He doesn't say, "I want to know." He goes, "I want to know. I want to know what he's saying to that corner." That's my Mark Goddard impression.
It's not bad.
Dude, Mark Goddard, he is one of the best refs, man. This is why he's one of the best.
Yes.
He's so, he is the captain of the fucking ship. It's his fucking ship, and both fighters and all the cornermen and all the doctors are on his ship. And man, he got the information he needed, and he made the decision that he needed to make. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What are your thoughts of how that played out?
I mean, I think when it comes to fighter safety, thank God for Mark Goddard, because it seems like Gaziev's corner was like, fuck you, get in there and fight. Well, I don't think you need an eye. I don't care what you're saying. Get your ass in there. Gaziev's like, he's on the floor. There's no chair. He's just squatted basically on the fence. Super, I mean, you could spell deterred all over his face. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, he was done. And he had already fought through seemingly 2 rounds that he couldn't have fought anyway. Like, he was done in the second round. His cardio was fucked. And 3 and 4 were just rough. I mean, they were just that he was there to get hit. And I think there was a part of him that knew that. And his corner's only advice was, you need to take him down.
Yeah.
You need to take him down. And Gaziev's like, I fucking can't take him down.
I've tried.
Are you not watching?
He said he couldn't see, and they were like, okay, we go to the takedown. It's like, have you watched any of this fight? It's not fucking working.
It's not happening, bro.
Go to it now.
The later the fight that I have no energy doesn't mean I'm now going to get a takedown. It's not going to happen.
As if he was going to be like, oh, now I can? Sweet. Thanks for the permission. I've been waiting.
Why didn't you say this sooner to me? It got really bad towards the end of that fight. But the thing that I didn't like was the sketchiness from the corner. There is a line between encouraging your fighter and really knowing when your fighter is just done.
Yeah.
You can judge them all you want. You can, whatever, but it's done. You're not fighting in there. Those coaches need to ease it a little bit when it comes to that stuff. And thank God for Mark Goddard, because it seems like they were about to force that boy to go out there. I don't know if Gaziev would have actually went out there or not, but
yeah, I wonder.
They when I tell you they were like, if he dies, he dies. Like, that's where his coaches were at that point.
Yeah.
So thank God for Mark Goddard.
Yeah, props to Goddard, because you could see it, even if you couldn't understand it, you could see it just from Gaziev's face. Yeah. That there was a back and forth happening where he was not agreeing with his corner. And I think Goddard was waiting to let it play out, to give the corner the chance to wave it off. And then as soon as they stood up and it hadn't happened, that's when he was like, timeout. Like, I need to know. So he really handled it perfectly. He gave them the chance, saw that they didn't take it, and then he was like, okay, we're getting to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if a fighter, I'm thinking of that girl, I don't know who it is, maybe you guys do, not too long ago, not too many years ago, a female fighter who was saying to her corner, I'm done. And they were like, no, you're not. Who is that? This was in the UFC.
Wasn't that Aspen Ladd?
Aspen Ladd, correct.
Was it?
That was Aspen Ladd, right?
Was it? Or was Aspen Ladd where he was just screaming and cursing at her?
That might have been it. It might not have been her wanting to quit. It just might have been very aggressive, get your ass out there kind of thing.
And I don't remember, in that fight, did that fighter continue? She did go back out?
I don't remember.
Okay. No idea. Anyway, the point I'm getting to is really is an open question of, if the referee overhears that conversation between the fighter and coach, this the fact that the fighter utters that phrase, like, I'm done, I'm not, like, the ref is obligated to stop the fight? Because that seems to be like what Goddard sniffed out with Gaziev.
Well, I think where they ended up was it was already sketchy because the corner was trying to seemingly hide stuff from Goddard. So that was already a red flag for Goddard. But it really, I think, came down to the fact that Gaziev said he couldn't see. That was really what it was. Once he finally got told from the corner that he's saying, I can't see, he went over to the doctor, kind of evaluated it with the doctor, and then he waved it off. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was time being taken up. This wasn't like an official timeout. They really shouldn't have taken any of the time that they did in the first place to do any of that shit. He didn't answer the call to the bell. And that was the reality. And I think it finally got to Mark Goddard that there wasn't a legitimate reason why all of this was going on. And he just didn't answer the bell. And that was the end of the fight.
Well, all right. Let's talk about where these guys go from here. We have a few more fights to get through, so let's try to get back on track here. I mostly blame myself. Let's see. Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He is back in the win column, and he's on the mic, and he calls out absolutely nobody. He's like, I'm tired. I'm gonna go. And then he's like, oh, but anybody who wants it, come get it.
Yeah.
Mark, if you were the matchmaker, what would you want to? What kind of matchup would you want to put Rozenstruik in next?
I mean, as always, if I'm asked about a matchup for Derek Lewis or Jairzinho Rozenstruik, the answer is Derek Lewis or Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So that is what I want. I'll give you one other, since that seems to never happen, which is that we have this upcoming main event between Tai Tuivasa and Marcin Tybura. And I get it that some people may feel like, oh, Rozenstruik deserves a bigger jump than that, or like the winner of Tai and Tybura deserved a bigger jump than that. But that next level of heavyweight is like so much above where they're at right now that I feel like they all need like 2 wins to get there. So Rozenstruik just got 1. Whoever wins that fight is going to get 1. And then I say pair them up, and then someone really breaks through to a big opportunity.
Like it. Omar, any other thoughts?
For me, it's Derek Lewis. I think the fact that they haven't fought yet is crazy. It's crazy.
That is, man. That is. What's the promotion doing? What are they doing?
Yep.
By the way, just for the record, Rozenstruik improves to 14-5 as a pro and 8-5 in the UFC. His 13th victory by stoppage. And yeah, back in the win column after losing to Jailton Almeida back in May. Quickly,
what's his record in the UFC? 8-5.
8-5. 8-5. All 5 of his career losses have been in the UFC.
Fights, 13 fights in the UFC. Dude, I am seriously having a problem keeping track of how many fights these dudes have had in the UFC.
Yeah, man.
I mean, think about it. He fought like Overeem. He fought freaking Dos Santos. Am I thinking of the right person? Yeah, Dos Santos. Yeah, like he's been around for a minute.
He has been. Okay, let's talk about Shamil Gaziev. Notably, his first loss in his pro career, now 12-1 as a pro, and now 1-1 in the UFC. Mark, what would you do with Gaziev next?
I don't know. I guess the loser of Mo Usman and Michael Parkin. Like I know the guy was just in a main event, but he's not ranked. He hasn't really proven much. To give him most of these guys, it almost feels like the guy would be like, why would I have to fight Gaziev right now? So yeah, that's where I'll go.
Okay. Omar, any thoughts before we move on to the co-main?
I think at this point for me, I'd probably send him towards one of the Tafas. So spoilers, Junior Tafa just got his leg chewed out not too long ago. So he's out of his fight against Carl Williams. But because Junior and Justin Tafa are the same person, Justin Tafa will now be fighting in place of Junior Tafa. So like same, but different kind of thing.
I wanted to go Justin Tafa for my choice here, but I saw that he just stepped into that fight. So I was like, I guess I can't.
This is correct. Yes. I'm going to go with the loser of that fight.
We need to make some kind of like quick video of interviewing UFC fans at a bar. And the title is like, are you a diehard or a casual? and show them a picture of one of the Tafas and be like, there are two brothers in the UFC. One is named Justin Tafa and one is named Junior. Which one is this? And show
They
them
look
the
very
picture.
different from each other. So
They
it's
do.
actually, if you know them, it's actually not hard.
I feel like if you see a still picture of them, it gets very difficult. Seeing them in
Their
person,
faces are super different.
I don't know about super different. Super
I
different.
really think they
bit
are.
of an exaggeration.
Justin's is that typical, like, New Zealand, Samoan, Islander face. And I feel like Junior's is not so much those same characteristics.
He has the exact same characteristics. He just looks junior-ish. Just looks younger. That's all. Just looks like Justin 10 years ago. That's all that is.
I'm looking at their pictures right now. And
virtually identical, Mike.
No, they're not.
Aren't I right, Mike?
Justin is like a thicker guy.
Yes. With a block head.
Yeah.
And it won't help. It won't do anyone any favors that their names both start with J. That's just cruel.
No, it doesn't.
Justin
it also doesn't help that they have like the same facial hair.
Does Junior Tafa.
What's that?
Justin looks more like Mark Hunt than he does Junior Tafa.
Yes. You're so right. You're so right. That's what it is right there, man.
Oh, I think if Junior didn't have that goddamn mullet, I think things would be a little bit easier.
Okay. Here's a picture I found on Google where they're standing together. The two of them are standing together. And sure, they look like brothers. Like, yeah, these are brothers. Sure. Yes, they are. But they do look very different.
We are having a lot of sidebars in this show for a show
too
that
many,
has
man.
A million
too
things.
Fucking many.
Let's get on the horse and really
real quick. And I just want to ask: are we only matching up winners here now for time's sake? Okay. Sure. Okay. Back on the horse. Here we go. Co-main event. Vitor Petrino gets the decision win over Tyson Pedro. Omar, give us your take on how this fight played out.
This played out as sad as it could. You got to give credit to Petrino, man. It looks uncomfortable to be in there with him, man. He is very well rounded, so very powerful. The grappling that's the kind of grappling you dread, man. The kind that just essentially makes you have to survive. You can't even fight in those kind of situations. You just have to try not to die. And that went on forever. So you got to give credit to Petrino, man. And, I think the thing that sucks the most is that that's the fight that Tyson Pedro is going out on. Obviously, he retired after the fight and put his gloves down. And, it wasn't even and it wasn't a great performance from him. It was very underwhelming from him. And a lot of it had to do with nullification from Petrino. But, it's a heartbreak. It's a heartbreak. We've obviously been Tyson Pedro fans for a while. We've seen the potential that he has, but he came up real short in his last couple fights. And even in this one, he looked broken early.
Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, this was the direct opposite of what I expected from this fight. There was just a lot more respect, I guess, from each guy to the other than I think the fans were hoping for. I thought we were going to get a high-paced car crash type fight, and instead we got a mid-paced and sometimes low-paced spar style of fight. So that was a bit disappointing with two guys who are such high-level finishers. But it was still a nice step forward for Petrino. He was in there with a guy in Tyson Pedro who's beaten guys like Khalil Roundtree and Paul Craig and others, and he managed him well all fight. He stayed safe. He worked his jab. He ripped the legs. Of course, he worked in the grappling late. It's nothing dominant, but it's still a nice step forward to be able to fight a smart, well-rounded fight against a Tyson Pedro. And then we find out the unique career of Tyson Pedro has come to an end already. I can't help but feel like there was a higher level untapped when it comes to him. But he said he wants to be at home with his daughter and can't hate on him for that. So good for him. Wish him the best. And Petrino keeps moving up, 4-0 in the UFC. And I'm sure not a guy that a lot of guys are like itching to fight right now.
Yeah, it's true. So Tyson Pedro retires, finishes his pro career 10-5. He joined the UFC in 2016 after going only 4-0 as a pro. And by the way, he started his UFC career, started it out with a first-round submission victory over Khalil Roundtree.
Yep.
And he finishes his UFC career 6-5 in the UFC. But let's focus on the winner here now with Petrino. Stays undefeated, now 11-0 as a pro, 4-0 in the UFC, as Mark just said. Only his third career win by decision. Omar, if you were the matchmaker, light heavyweight, what's next for Vitor Petrino?
Well, Vitor Petrino is not too far away, I would imagine, from the area of Carlos Ulberg. And I would think that the loser of Menefield and Ulberg might be a good fight.
That fight would be crazy. Mark, your thoughts?
That would be crazy. I will go Dustin Jacoby. He is coming off a loss. He's clinging to that number 15 ranking in the UFC's rankings right now. And I think that fight makes sense because the one knock on Petrino thus far is that maybe he's a little bit raw. So putting him across from a high-level technique guy, I think, could be interesting to see how Petrino deals with that.
Okay. Nice. Let's move on now to the flyweight division. Muhammad Mokaev defeats Alex Perez by a unanimous decision. All three scorecards read 29-28 for the Englishman, Mokaev. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your thoughts.
Yeah, so Mokaev gets it done. The undefeated streak stays intact. He did have some nice moments with the hands, with the peek outs to reverse positions or take the back end scrambles. And, of course, that one friggin' German suplex, which was incredible. But all in all, it wasn't that thrilling. And it's certainly not the performance you want when you're trying to leapfrog a division for this title shot at UFC 301 that's, being dangled out there. Perez stood up to him in the wrestling, and he really wasn't sure how he wanted to adapt in that fight once he saw that was the case. And he's going to have to work on that. And on top of that, he didn't really do well with getting backed up either. At any time Perez got him anywhere near the cage, it was just an auto shoot. And someone is going to time a knee there. I couldn't believe that Perez wasn't timing anything. There was a fly flying past me. Even commentary was saying it. They were like, at this point, anytime he advances, it's just this auto drop down from Mokaev. Like, why not feint and try to time a knee? And Perez just wasn't doing that. So there were some definitely the most concerning signs, I would say, that we've seen from Mokaev at this point. He did win, in my opinion. He got round 1 and round 3. Yes, Perez was on point with the takedown D, but aside from the second round, he was never really scoring. And you don't score points for defense. So I did think Mokaev got it done. Obviously, there's still a ton of room to grow with how young he is. He'll get a lot better still, I'm sure, but he does need to button some things up before he's standing across a guy like a Pantoja in there. And as for Perez, he came ready to deal with the wrestling. He was really impressive defensively there, but it seemed like he just got so focused on that he forgot about his own offense. So I'm sure that's a frustrating one for him. I bet he looks back and rewatches that fight and feels like he could have done more and probably taken that one. Like, the window was wide open. But Mokaev did enough, and the O is still intact.
Omar, did you already say words about this? I'm sorry.
I did not.
Please say words.
Mokaev was, I would have to agree with Mark. It was a little underwhelming from the hype that Mokaev had and all the kind of shit that Mokaev likes to talk. And I was actually really impressed with Alex Perez, to be honest. I did not see the takedown defense of Alex Perez being that on point. Strong hips, strong shots of his legs all the way back, really trying to keep as much away from Mokaev, throwing elbows inside of these clinch positions to try to deter Mokaev and obviously score some points and get some damage going and things like that. So I was really impressed with Alex Perez. I thought he did a lot better than I expected him to, especially because we haven't seen him in a little bit. Always having some kind of issue one way or the other.
Yep.
But, Mokaev got it done technically. I just think that I think everybody kind of expected there to be a little bit more domination and a little bit more I don't know. I don't know if finesse is really the word, but maybe
I
a
know what you
more
mean.
technical fight.
And I agree.
You know what I mean?
I do agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
Mark, do you feel like Mokaev in this win has maybe not gained as much stock as he could have? Or maybe even lost a little?
For sure, because as I alluded to, it was on the table. We're in this weird scenario where Pantoja is adamant about fighting on UFC 301 to the point that he is saying he will fight any top 20 fighter just to get on this card. So it was there because, as we talked about last week, yes, Royval just beat Maryna, but he also just lost to Pantoja. So, like, they're looking for someone else. And if Mokaev won this dominantly, it easily could have been him. And his name was coming out of Pantoja's mouth as well. So it was there for him. But that performance, him getting a title shot off that performance, I think feels worse than Royval getting a rematch already. So,
Totally.
Yeah, I think he whiffed on it a little bit. And I get it that Albazi is hurt and won't be back soon enough. But to me, I just think I'd still rather see like a Manel Kopp or even a Kai Kara France, considering everyone knows he beat Albazi and got screwed in that decision. So I think Mokaev might have missed it, man. So to me, I think maybe you go Mokaev and Royval. You know, of course, if one of them does get it, that changes. But if not, I think that's the fight to make.
The good news is I love that fight anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's a great fight. And a huge challenge for Mokaev. And I would say another step up after what was just his biggest win of his career, defeating Alex Perez. So Mokaev still undefeated, also obviously undefeated in the UFC, 6-0 in the UFC now. Only his fourth career win by decision. Still only 23 years old is Mokaev. So,
Yep.
Omar, what do you think is next for Mokaev?
I don't know how long Kai Kara France is out, but I think that would be my choice.
Okay.
How do we get Demetrius Johnson to show up at UFC 301 and fight Pantoja? Like
go.
that would solve everything. Let's just make that one happen.
Really would.
That dude is making so much money from not fighting.
Who can we?
From his Twitch.
From his Twitch streams, from his podcast now. Like, dude's making money.
Let's trade Ben Askren back to one. Because he's also not fighting, so fair trade.
Nobody wants Ben Askren, dog.
Huh?
Nobody wants Ben Askren. Nobody wants.
Let's trade a heavyweight to fight Malykhin. Fucking boom. Who can we trade?
There you go. Pick it up.
Yeah,
pick it up.
Who could we take from the shallowest fucking division in the UFC and throw him in Asia?
Let's see. We are gonna take whom? I don't know. I can't find someone that I love as the choice.
Like Tuivasa?
Like the loser of Tuivasa and Tibura, and be like, "Hey, give us DJ. We'll give you this guy to fight Malykhin." Why not?
Just send Derek Lewis over there.
Or that. Could do that.
Just send Derek Lewis over there. Let's get it done.
Just a quick note.
Rampage over there.
Tough times I know we're not matching up Perez for this, but just tough times for Perez. Third consecutive loss. Nothing to hang his head low about. Lost to Mokaev this past weekend. Lost to Pantoja back in July of 2022. And lost to Figgy back in November of 2020. So not the most active, and unfortunately, 3 consecutive losses now for Perez. Let's move on. Excuse me. Moving on. Bantamweights Umar Nurmagomedov does the work, gets it done over Almakhan. Unanimous decision. Pretty dominant. The scorecards read 30-26, 30-26, and 30-25. All for Nurmagomedov. Mark, start us off. Give us your take.
Holy shit, Almakhan almost set off some fireworks in the beginning of that fight, huh? I mean, he dropped Umar clean out the gate,
man.
But Umar just went into survival mode, and that wrestling that is true second nature for these guys just clicked in, and next thing you know, he's up on a takedown, he's pushing, and he's finishing the single leg to get Almakhan to the ground. So he took a bit of time to clear himself after the shot, but then he just went to work, and he's too damn good because Almakhan, as we know, is a pretty big deal prospect, and there was just nothing he could do to Umar in the grappling. It was dominant in terms of the control, and he decided from that point forward that there was no reason for him to really play around on the feet again. And we got 2 more rounds that were kind of carbon copies of what we saw for the last 4 minutes of the first round. And Umar is a fantastic wrestler and grappler, as we know, and it's going to be a problem for anyone. His shot is just so damn quick. And you combine that with his ability to finish takedowns from seemingly any angle, and it's just a lot to deal with. But what he has going for him, maybe getting clipped was a good thing, because maybe someone will actually see him looking vulnerable for a minute and be like, sure, I'll fight that guy. Because right now, no one has been willing to fight him, and that's how we ended up here. But we'll see. It's going to be a tough ask because he is on an elite level with his grappling for sure.
Yeah, man. Omar, your thoughts?
Hang on, I lost my spot here. Son of a bitch. Sorry. 1 second. I thought Umar looked great as usual. I think the thing that always gets me about Umar is his takedowns and his timing. Obviously, of the Nurmagomedovs, they all kind of follow that same pattern, that same style, and it still works for them, man. Like all different weight classes so far, it seems to be a really effective way of doing things. And the thing that's super impressive about those kind of performances is that it doesn't really allow people to breathe too much. I think where I got really impressed with Almakhan was his ability to get back up. We haven't seen too many dudes get back up once they're on the ground from Umar Nurmagomedov. And granted, as the fight continued to go on, it did become more apparent that he couldn't consistently get up every time he got taken down, but he got up quite a bit. And he was definitely in there to scrap. He definitely was making a showing of himself. The right hand that landed, you could hear the thud as it landed across the head of Umar Nurmagomedov, but I'm not really sure what Umar was trying to do, because he just kind of recklessly stepped into range and changed his stance with seemingly no real plan behind what he was doing. So very odd moment. Seemed like he, in that sense, kind of asked for it, if you will. But overall, I mean, the wrestling of Nurmagomedov is what saved him. I mean, even blindfolded, that dude could take somebody down, turn the corner, end up on top, maintain top position, look for mount, and then try to work their way from there. I mean, it's super impressive, the level of wrestling that they have, because again, the autopilot they can do to themselves when they're on a bad way. I mean, that's going to make a big difference, especially as you get closer to the top.
So still undefeated is Nurmagomedov. Now 17-0 as a professional. Omar, give me the name of who do you think he could go up against next? And alluding to what Mark said, now since he kind of got clipped and dropped, maybe that'll make more guys a little more willing to step up to the challenge.
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit of a false narrative, if you will, if guys really start looking at it that way. I think looking at it in a way that you've made one mistake in an entire fight that you were then dominant for the majority of it seems foolish. There's going to be a lot more to take care of in there than just trying to land a lucky right hand off of some bad footwork that I'm sure we won't see again from Nurmagomedov. So I hope nobody goes in there with that mentality, because they're probably just going to get smoked. But if we are going to go and get Nurmagomedov, somebody who I think will give him a real challenge and also some name value, I think Dominic Cruz might be the way to go in this situation.
Oh, wow. Mark?
My answer is Dominic Cruz. I would love to see Dom's mind try to figure out that puzzle. I get it that, the age factor is there, and maybe he doesn't figure it out at this point in his career, but I would still love to see him try. I just think that's a fun fight. If not him, if that's not realistic, then I'll say maybe the loser of this Petr Yan and Song Yadong fight from this Saturday coming up. But you never know what they're going to do, man, because of the last name. Like they could just go right back to him and Sandhagen. Like you don't know how much they're going to try to skyrocket this guy. So it really could be anyone in these rankings.
Dude, honestly, it could also even be Figueiredo at this point.
Well, he's booked against Garbrandt.
Could be the loser.
But if he wins,
or the loser,
yeah, I guess either way. All right, Mike, keep moving.
Okay. Last one we're going to talk about from this fight night card before we move on to all the other things. So Steve Erceg finishes Matt Danger Schnell. Schnell certainly was in danger. See what I did there? The end came at 26 seconds into the second round. Oh my goodness, only the second win by knockout for Steve Erceg's pro career, but my goodness, does his striking look very impressive. Mark, start us off here. Give us your take.
These boys were going at it while this thing lasted. Erceg, you could tell, had the cleaner hands from jump. Yeah. At range, he definitely had an advantage, but Schnell's hands were quicker, and he was lunging in with some combos, and that speed really made round one a competitive round. Erceg did show some signs of what was to come by wobbling Schnell a couple times in the first, but holy hell, I don't know if anyone saw a one-shot walk-off knockout coming. A walk-off knockout at flyweight with the hands, like not a head kick, with the hands. It's not something that we really see at flyweight. But Erceg landed a right to the body, and it just put him in perfect position to kind of load up and come up with that left hand, and it landed as flush as can be. So that is a monster win for Steve Erceg. He's only 3-0 in the UFC at this point, but he is already, I would say, firmly in the mix of guys kind of hovering around this cloudy title picture.
Omar, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the hands of Erceg I thought were fantastic. The combos from him were fantastic. Again, I thought Schnell would make it a little bit more chaotic. And he did. I guess he did. I thought he'd be more successful overall. But, that first round was as close to chaos as you get when it comes to that kind of stuff. But in the end, I mean, touch the chin in the right spot, might as well be a light switch, man. It was wild.
Improves to 12-1, 11th straight pro win. Mark already said now 3-0 in the UFC. This is his first finish in the UFC and his first win as an engaged man. On the microphone, Mark, he calls out Brandon Moreno, citing the reason being that Moreno is sitting on back-to-back losses. What are your thoughts?
I don't know if we're going to go that far. No. If I had to pick a name, I would probably say Mateusz Nicolau. But I will say, similar to what we just kind of talked about with Mokaev earlier, this flyweight division is absolutely all over the place. Like, if no one is available and Pantoja's insisting on being on this card, Steve Erceg might get a call like, hey, bud, we need you at 301. You're getting a title shot. Like, it's very all over the place right now. So it's hard to call what's going to happen for this guy. But if I got to pick a name, I'll say Nicolau.
Omar?
I'm actually going to go with the Alex Perez route. I liked what I saw from Alex Perez in this fight. I think that I think there might be something to giving him somebody who will stand and bang with him for a little while, and it might just give him a little bit of a better win or loss, a better accounting. He doesn't have to spend all fight just trying to stay on his feet.
Cool. All right, let us move on now to some other things. Mark, on the heels of this UFC Fight Night, give us the update to the Priaulx rankings.
Okay, we got 3 risers and 1 faller. We'll start with the risers. The first is Vitor Petrino. Goes from number 24 to number 20 in my light heavyweight rank, so he is creeping up on those top 15 rankings, excuse me. The other one's only 3 spots, but it was pretty notable, is Muhammad Mokaev, because he goes from number 8 to number 5 in my flyweight ranking, so he is officially a top 5 flyweight now for me. And then the biggest mover of the week is Ayman Zahabi. Goes from number 45 to number 33 in my bantamweight rankings, beating Javid Basharat in a fight where not many people gave him a chance, myself included. And that leads us to the notable faller of the week, which is Javid Basharat. He goes from number 26 in my bantamweight rankings, which I already thought was like, he's better than 26. He just hasn't really got to like beat that guy to jump him up yet. And he falls from number 26 to 34 in my bantamweight ranks. So that was an unexpected loss. He was minus 800, I believe, coming into that fight. He's a guy that a lot of people thought could beat ranked fighters already. And dropped one to Ayman Zahabi. So that was not a great look, and he falls 8 spots down to number 34. And that is it for my rankings this week.
And that is it. Okay, Omar. Tell your
Real
cat
quick, did you
to go
this
take
man
a
is
chill pill.
This man is screaming at the top of his lungs.
I don't even hear it.
Oh,
He's not doing it anymore, but he was doing it from all the way downstairs, and then he came upstairs. He brought that little yellow toy in the corner here in his mouth while he's yelling because he likes to bring gifts of things that he thinks he's murdered.
I have to go open the door for my cat, actually.
So my kid is crying.
There you go. All right. So, real quick, we have a couple of little tidbits in the news, and then we're going to get into just a few fight announcements, and then we can move right along into the good stuff. So the first thing here we have, Amanda Serrano was supposed to fight alongside Jake Paul this past weekend in another boxing event that would headline the two of them. Amanda Serrano could not fight last minute and was pulled from the event. She's asked the, I guess, promoters and things like that to give out refunds and whatnot because she wasn't able to obviously be at that event, and a lot of people came to see her, flew out and things like that. So real heartache, real shot to the gut for people who are Amanda Serrano fans, and there are a good amount of Serrano fans, and myself included. Turns out this had to do with some sort of allergic reaction that she had to some hair gel. So, and I asked my wife about this. I don't know shit about this, but apparently they use hair gel, a specific type of hair gel, to help with braids, and it's what gives the braids that sort of slick, clean look to it when the women get them done. And supposedly this, while she was running, the gel might have mixed in with her sweat, and the sweat dripped down and kind of got in her eye, and her eye ended up getting a pretty bad allergic reaction to the gel. And the doctors, she put in some eye drops and was trying to walk around without irritating the eye with sunglasses and things like that. But the doctors called off the fight. They told her that she wasn't able to fight in her condition. And obviously she was gutted. So really sucks for her. Hopefully she gets that rebooked quickly and we get to see her back out there. But what a crazy freak thing to happen. Next on the list, just a little bit of an update here. Gamebred bare knuckle fighting also went down this past weekend, headlined by Junior Dos Santos and Alan Belcher for the heavyweight title, and Junior Dos Santos ends up as the new inaugural heavyweight champion of Gamebred bare knuckle. I mean, he put the beats down on Alan Belcher towards the end, but they both beat the shit out of each other. I'm pretty sure Junior Dos Santos' nose is going to need some kind of reconstruction because it is pounded like 3 different directions. Hell of a fight, but Dos Santos, and this is MMA, by the way, this is not bare knuckle boxing. So Dos Santos was able to, I mean, even more so because he got on top of Alan Belcher and was just pounding away at Alan Belcher from top. So rough night for Alan Belcher. Great fight, but rough.
See what I mean? My man still got it. Get him over there to fight Anatoly Malykhin.
Yeah. Fought Alan Belcher. Still got it. Same, right?
Same.
All right, couple fun announcements here. Brad Riddell, the long-awaited return of Brad Riddell, will have to wait a little bit longer. He is out against his fight with Thiago Moises. Moises will now be facing Mitch Ramirez, and that will be going down on March 16th at UFC Vegas 88. I have no idea. I have no idea who that is. We've already talked about this Junior Tafa one, but real quick, Junior Tafa again out, leg chopped up. Carl Williams will be getting the second Tafa brother in Justin Tafa, who was supposed to fight the fight that Junior Tafa just fought. But instead now he's fighting this fight that Junior Tafa was supposed to fight, but didn't because he fought the fight that Justin Tafa was supposed to fight. It makes sense in there somewhere.
That was very thorough, I thought. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next on the list, we have Alex Morono. He's fighting Court McGee. That is an interesting fight booking right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, what's the... I don't know. I don't get the why behind that one. They seem like they're in different places, but it'll be fun, I guess.
But that will be added to, or that has been added to UFC Vegas 90 on April 6th. And lastly on here, we have another interesting pairing in Chase Hooper versus Vyacheslav Borishev.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That has been added to UFC's May 11th event.
They're literally like, well, Chase, if you can get this to the ground, you win. But good luck not dying before that happens.
Yeah. But that is all we have this week.
Okay, wow. Let's now turn our attention to the preview portion of the show. Because this coming Saturday night, we are recording this on a Monday night. So in less than a week, we're going to be treated to one of the craziest pay-per-view cards on paper that we've seen with UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera. O'Malley versus Vera 2. Going down at the, I don't know how to say this, Kaseya Center in Miami, Florida. You guys know how to say that? Omar, do you know how?
How's it spelled?
Kasey.
Kas.
I think it's a company. I don't think it's a Spanish word.
Casio or
Kaseya?
Kaseya?
I don't know how else you would say that.
Yeah, it's a Chinese company. I have no idea.
Okay. Anyway, it's in Miami. So here we go. There's no need for me to ask you guys to spotlight any fights or fighters because we're going to talk about every fight on this card, starting with the early prelims in the card, in the fight that is opening the entire card in the women's flyweight division between Joanne Wood and Maryna Moroz. I think for the early prelims and maybe up into the prelims, I won't do the full spiel of introing them. So I'll just say Joanne Wood, longtime UFC vet out of Scotland, and Maryna Moroz, the Iron Lady, 32 years old out of Ukraine. She's coming off back-to-back losses. Joanne Wood coming off a win against Luana Carolina back in March. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your pick for Wood versus Moroz opening $299.
All right. Moroz is the favorite in the early fight here. She's minus 215. Joanne Wood is plus 175. Obviously, this is let me give you the measurements too. 1 inch of height and 1.5 inches of reach for Moroz. There's a rematch. The first time these two met, Moroz was making her debut, and she pulled a big upset with an armbar over Joanne Wood. This time it's actually Moroz that's the favorite coming in. She's just looked better lately despite dropping her last two. But I'm going to go with her here. I just think she can manage to keep this fight in phone booth range or grappling. You know, keep it messy, keep it sticky, keep it ugly, and take the W. I know JoJo bounced back and got her first win in a while last time out, and she did look solid, and I was happy to see that. I'm always rooting for JoJo. But as slick as her striking is, I don't think she has the firepower needed to keep Moroz off her. And Moroz works. She'll eat shots to get inside. She'll push a pace. And she's willing to be in a dogfight. And her grappling is nasty. So I'm going to say she actually gets another sub over JoJo. And I will go round 2 sub for Moroz.
Omar?
I actually kind of agree with that, to be honest. I think Moroz has had better performances. I think the last fight that Joanne Wood had, I did think she won that fight, but that fight was so close and no one was really dominant in that fight. It was difficult to really take away from that fight how good I guess Joanne would be going forward. And I think Maryna has just had a better accounting of herself as of recent. I actually think that Wood has kind of been inconsistent, and in certain points you could argue that she's looked less than great in a lot of her recent performances. So I will also go with Moroz here. I do think that the ground game is probably going to be the Achilles heel of Joanne Wood, as it has been in the past, and I will go with a submission as well. Second round, Maryna Moroz.
I feel like one knock against Joanne Wood, formerly Collar Wood, is that she can get kind of bodied by other girls, especially girls who have more of a grappling base than she does. Obviously, she's obviously a very talented kickboxer, and I agree. I think that's going to play out again. I think Moroz is going to take her well-rounded skill set, her grappling skill set, and have her way. She has the height. She has the reach advantage. She's going to get a hold of her. I think she's going to be bigger than Wood in there again. And I don't see her submitting. I for some reason, I see her getting her hand raised because the judges are going to think she won the fight. I'm going to say UD for Maryna Moroz. Let's now go to the men's flyweight division bout between CJ Vergara and Asu Almabaev. Vergara, 32 years old, fighting out of the good old US of A, riding back-to-back victories. And Asu Sulfinkar, I'm butchering his nickname, Almabaev, the 30-year-old out of Kazakhstan. Very impressive 18-2 record. Has not lost a fight since 2017. Omar, give us your thoughts and your pick.
Yeah, I like CJ Vergara. I feel like I've picked against him in the past, and I feel like it's bitten me in the ass quite a couple times. It's a little difficult for me because MMA math is one of those things that can be dangerous to follow. But Almabaev beat Ode Osborne. CJ Vergara lost to Ode Osborne. And so ipso facto, Almabaev has already beaten CJ Vergara. So I feel like I should be going with Almabaev here. CJ Vergara is a very tough dude. He's very straightforward though with his technique, right? There's not a lot of surprise to him. He's just a very solid fundamentalist when it comes to his striking. So I just think Almabaev might be a little bit more creative in there in all areas. I don't know how successful he's going to be at dominating Vergara here, but I'm going to go with Almabaev by decision 29-28.
Mark?
So he is a big favorite, Almabaev. He is minus 480. CJ Vergara is plus 360 on the other side. He is bigger, 2 inches of height and 3 inches of reach for Vergara here. But yeah, Almabaev came into the UFC with some hype, delivered on it in his first fight against Ode Osborne. And I know CJ Vergara is not an easy guy to look great against, so I'm curious to see if Almabaev can deliver again here, but I'm going to take him either way. Vergara does bring a high work rate, so he'll try to push Almabaev as much as he can, but it comes down to the wrestling and the grappling for me, and we saw what a high-level grappler in Tatsuro Taira could get done against Vergara, and I think Almabaev can do more or less that same thing. Plus, Vergara starts slow at times, and against a grappler, that's tough to come back from if you put yourself in a 1-0 hole, and then Almabaev always has the takedown to fall back on in rounds 2 and 3 if something's going bad. So I'm going to go with him. I'll say he builds a lead. Vergara has to get a little over-aggressive, and he gets choked out for it. Almabaev has a ton of chokes on his resume, so I'll say he gets another round 3 submission.
Agree. This is an easier pick. I think Almabaev is the hot young prospect, or relatively young. Another dynamo coming out of Kazakhstan. I'm going to take him. I'll say submission round 2. Let's go to the heavyweight division a very much anticipated debut by the Cuban. Help me say this name. Is it Robelli or Robelis?
I don't know.
If I had to guess, I would imagine it's Robelli. But
I love it.
That
I love it
sounds
when you
right.
talk
I don't
Spanish to
know.
me.
What's the last name, Omar?
D'Espagne?
Okay, that's what I thought. But I don't
Oh,
know if
really?
it's right. That's just what I thought reading it.
I also don't know if it's right, but if I had to read it, in my head, it sounds like Robelli d'Espagne,
Right.
which
Ooh,
is
God,
actually kind of a nice name, actually.
so sexy.
Yeah, that was nice.
His nickname is the Bad Boy because my man, the 35-year-old out of Cuba, 4-0, undefeated in MMA.
4-0.
In MMA.
Who's this guy?
Dude, you know the guy?
Dude, you know who we're talking
I know
about?
exactly
He's like
who he
6'7". He's knocking everybody out in like 10
Oh,
seconds.
yeah. So the picture they have is not the picture that I've seen of him.
Uh-huh.
The
Who's
picture,
the
the
they?
one that they have on Sherdog is not. That's not how I've seen him. So
I see.
we're on the same train now. I'm there. We're there.
Robelli d'Espana, 35 years old out of Cuba, undefeated 4-0 with 4 knockouts. Pretty viral knockouts, all of them. And when taken together, like a combined fight time of like 30-something seconds or something like that, pretty much knocks out his opponents immediately after the bell. Like, it's kind of crazy to see. So we will see how he fares when he goes up against some UFC competition. His first one out this weekend is going to be against Josh Parisian, the 34-year-old out of Brighton, Michigan, 15-7 with 11 knockouts of his own. Looking to get back in the win column against the debutante after back-to-back losses against Jamal Poyes and Martin Boudet. Mark, start us off. Give us your take and your pick.
So Despaigne is the favorite. He is minus 340, despite the relatively small pro experience. Josh Parisian is plus 260 on the other side. 3 inches of height and 8 inches of reach for Despaigne. He's huge. He's a freak. If you've seen the highlights, you know what this dude is bringing. Cuban Olympian in Taekwondo, bronze medalist, largest reach in UFC history, by the way. 3 of his 4 pro fights, as you alluded to, 3 of his 4 did not make it 13 seconds. And the other was also over in the first round. We know what this is. Josh Parisian is being set up to take the fall here. I understand Despaigne is unproven, but I kind of can't believe this line is not wider. I guess the thought is maybe if Parisian could take him down, he could just hold him down. But I'm going to trust Despaigne here. I'm not sold on Parisian having enough skill in any one area to expose Despaigne badly enough. So I will go with, you guessed it, round 1 knockout.
Omar?
I think Josh Parisian survives for an additional round. And I say this for one reason. That dude gets hit a ton. And I almost feel like he's used to getting hit so much at this point that he could survive an ass beating for 5 minutes. But once you put a break on it and he goes over to his corner and he's got to chill out for 60 seconds, I think that's where he gets fucked up. He doesn't ramp up again. And by the second round, we see Josh Parisian get buried in the ground. So I'm going to go with Robelis, round 2, TKO.
I'm going to go with Josh Parisian by Twister. I'm kidding. Yeah, round 1 knockout for Despaigne. I think he's going to come in and make a big statement. Make some waves in the heavyweight division, which is always welcome in the heavyweight division, which I always feel would benefit from new blood. And here we have it. Let's see how well he does this weekend. Okay, moving up to the middleweight bout between Michel Pereira and Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. This is a fight that I am really looking forward to, man. So Pereira, the Demolidor, the 30-year-old out of Brazil, of course. By the way, we're still in the early prelims. This is crazy. This is how crazy this card is. This whole card, man.
Yep.
So Pereira 29-11 as a pro, with 11 knockouts, 7 subs, and he has not lost since February of 2020, which was a loss, by the way, a DQ loss against Diego Sanchez. Before that, he lost to Tristan Connolly. Oh, I remember that Connolly fight. Connolly was a big underdog in that fight, and definitely seemed overwhelmed by Pereira, but Connolly was a dog, man. But that being said, Pereira figured it out from those back-to-back losses and is on a 6-fight win streak in the UFC, most recently finishing Andrei Petroski back in October. And he'll be standing across from Michel Oleksiejczuk, a 29-year-old out of Poland, 19-6 with 1 no contest, 14 knockouts for Oleksiejczuk, most recently knocking out Chidi Njokuani, one of my faves, back in August. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick.
I actually tend to like both of these guys. I've liked Pereira more as he's kind of found the middle ground between button mashing and like stalling. And he's really found a nice groove where his striking is really on point. He saves a lot of the flashy stuff for when he knows he can throw it. But for the most part, he's always trying to set something up and has been a lot more measured in his approach in his last few fights. And I think we've seen the difference, right? He's won 6 in a row. Some of them have been harder fights than others, but he's been able to squeak them out. On the other hand, you have Oleksiejczuk, who's a little bit on the more inconsistent side. Sometimes he has really good performances. Sometimes he kind of gets worked a little bit. So I do think that Pereira has gotten to a point now where I think I can trust that he'll walk away here with a decision. I think it would be hard fought. I don't think Oleksiejczuk is the kind of guy that goes away or can be dispatched quite easily, at least on the feet. I guess there's always a possibility that a submission will be on the way for Pereira as well. His jiu-jitsu is decent, but I suspect this will be a relatively standy kind of fight. And I think Pereira takes 2 out of the 3 rounds. Decision.
Mark.
Pereira minus 155, Oleksiejczuk plus 125. So pretty close here. 1 inch of height for Pereira, but 1 inch of reach for Oleksiejczuk. So also very close. I know Pereira may have been expecting a bigger name than this after looking really good in his middleweight debut, but name or not, he has found himself in a fight here because Oleksiejczuk is just one of those natural fighters. He can eat shots all day. He does everything well. He does everything more athletically and more slick than it looks like he's going to, just visually looking at him. He has fight-ending power at any time. He's no easy task in here for Pereira. Now, Pereira obviously has a lot of those same things, and he's a crazy athlete, as we know, and he's the favorite here because of that. That's the differentiator. So if Oleksiejczuk is going to willingly trade strikes in this fight, he's going to have to be really careful. But you guys know I've always thought Oleksiejczuk was underrated, and since I think he's a live dog here, I think I'm going to take a shot on him. I thought he's going to be a bigger underdog than this. I guess other people are thinking the same thought at only plus 125. But there's a couple things. I'm not 100% sure that Pereira is fully past his cardio issues if he's in a high-paced fight, which this could be. So that's one thing that could come into play. But even if he is past those, I've always found him to be a rhythm fighter and a guy whose hitability jumps up when he's knocked off of that rhythm. And Oleksiejczuk is such a natural striker and willing striker that I think he's going to extend some of these exchanges here in ways that throw Pereira off, and Pereira is going to get caught. So I'm not going to say a knockout. I just mean caught at different times in the fight. But I'll predict a crazy fight that both guys survive and that ends up going to Oleksiejczuk on the cards.
Well, the last guy Oleksiejczuk fought in Chidi Njokuani also, I think in just the eye test seemed to be too much for Oleksiejczuk to handle athletically in terms of strength, natural strength. Njokuani, obviously a specimen at middleweight. And Michel Pereira, even moving up from welterweight to middleweight, the same can be said. The guy is just a specimen. He's just a freaking freak. But I see him getting Oleksiejczuk with that athleticism in this case. Dude, I have become an Oleksiejczuk fan over the course of his last few performances. The guy has won me over with his dogged determination, his willingness to scrap, and his surprising striking acumen in there. But that being said, I still am just leaning Pereira for this one. I think it is going to be a scrap. I think it's going to be back and forth. I do think Oleksiejczuk is going to land his own strikes here, but I think Pereira, with that athleticism and power, is going to pop him. And I think Pereira walks away with the UD. 2 rounds out of 3 are going to be a score of 4. Pereira and a UD. Okay.
It's crazy that Pereira is the former welterweight and Oleksiejczuk is the former light heavyweight. And I think even though the measurements are about the same, I think when they're standing next to each other, Pereira is going to look bigger.
Probably. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Moving on now to light heavyweight. Ooh, my browser is flipping out for a second. Okay, between Jan Cutelaba and Felipe Lins. Here we go. Cutelaba, the Hulk, 30 years old, out of Moldova, 17-9 as a pro, also 1 draw, also 1 no contest. Coming off a win against Tanner Boser by knockout in round 1 back in April, so just about a year ago. Felipe Lins, Monstro, 38 years old, out of Brazil, 17-5, 9 knockouts, riding a 3-fight win streak. Omar, give us your take and your pick of Lins versus Cutelaba.
I think this has all the makings of a car crash, of a disaster. The real issue is you have somebody in Cutelaba that is extremely unreliable. And I say that in the sense that he's fully skilled, fully able to win these fights, but his propensity to get into these firefights when it's not necessary, and not only get into them, fucking lose them. It's like he's his worst enemy when it comes to these things. He wants to get into these pissing contests in the middle of these fights. He wants to show these dudes that he's stronger than them, gets into these brawls and loses. I don't know if he's fixed that up. His last fight with Tanner Boser, he was able to put him away early by doing what Cutelaba does. So I don't know if anything's really changed, and I don't know if I don't believe that he's going to catch Felipe Lins in that kind of bullshit. So I'm going to go with Lins here, man. I think that Cutelaba is just a little bit too reckless when he can't find a chin, and he leaves himself quite exposed. So I'm going to go with Felipe Lins KO round 2.
I will go next. I find it always hard to pick Cutelaba fights. For some weird reason, I've never been on the Cutelaba train. I think he is impressive in his ways. I think he has good power. I think he's a dog for sure. But he's also a wild man, dude. He does have some of the most entertaining stare downs and face-offs that we've seen. But that being said, if I was an odds maker, I'd be like, this guy gotta make odds for his fights. He doesn't mind if the fight becomes a scrap, if it becomes a war. If he ends up dinging the other guy and walking out of there with a knockout victory himself, I wouldn't be surprised in any of his bouts. Same goes for this one. But for that reason, I don't like going with Cutelaba ever. So I'm going to go with Felipe Lins. I'll say knockout. I'm going to say Felipe Lins is going to get his 10th career pro knockout. And I'm going to say it's going to come in the second round. There you go. Mark.
Omar, you went Lins as well, right? Sorry. I forgot to write it down.
I did. I was just thinking to myself, I can't imagine Cutelaba. Cutelaba is such a potential threat, a one knockout threat, that I can't imagine, even if you think he's going to lose this fight, that those odds have to be below plus 200. There's no way it's above 200.
They're much closer. He's the favorite.
Who's the favorite?
Cutelaba. He is minus 130. Granted, for some reason, like usually when I grab these odds, I look at it like across all the books and I kind of grab the average of it. This fight was only listed on one book, which is weird because it's not like it just got added to this card. So DraftKings was the only book that had this line. So that was strange. But on there, it was minus 130 Cutelaba plus 110 for Lins. 1 inch of height and 3 inches of reach for Felipe Lins. Lins is 3-0 as a light heavyweight. He started 0-2 in the UFC up at heavyweight, but he's quietly won 3 in a row since he dropped down. He beat Pragnio, he beat OSP, and he beat Maxim Grishin, so he has looked pretty good. And Cutelaba, on the flip side, just ended a 3-fight losing streak for himself when he did finish Tanner Boser. But I kind of think this may be one of those Cutelaba fights where we see him run a guy over. I think it might be a Hulk smash. I just think his style is a problem for Felipe Lins. The speed, the pressure, the aggression. I could see Lins get knocked off his game early here and not recover. And the ground isn't always the right avenue for Cutelaba, but in this fight, I think it is. And I think he can take Lins down and drop some hammers early. So I'm going to go round 1 knockout for the Hulk.
For the Hulk. Okay. Here we go.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, man.
Dude, Cutelaba's won like twice in like a decade. Like,
chill.
It's okay. It was an exaggeration, but like not that far off.
Cutelaba, you guys hate on Cutelaba. He's got a losing record in the UFC. He's 6-8. But he's beaten Tanner Boser, Devin Clark. He drew with Dustin Jacoby. He beat Khalil.
How dare you even fucking say Devin Clark's name like that meant anything?
And then the rest of the names are like guys who were bums. But like
Devin Clark. Devin Clark that fights a career with a coin flip. You kidding me?
But like it's light heavyweight, dude. These guys are like borderline top 20 light heavyweights. Like it's a shallow ass division.
I guess.
Felipe Lins ain't any better thus far.
I don't know. A little bit better.
A little bit.
I mean, he didn't go literal multiple years without wins. I mean, literally all of 2020 for Cutelaba was a loss. All of 2022 was a dub. Like,
yeah, now we're not great. Now we're on the upswing, though.
Now we're on the upswing with.
I mean, you see what he did to Tanner Boser, bro? He's putting it together.
Yeah, I can't.
I don't know. I'm just not. I've never been a Felipe Lins guy. I know he's won 3 in a row. I just don't. I don't know. It's hard
to be fair. Like, I'm not even standing for Felipe Lins. I'm just.
No, I know. But we're getting into that part on the card where I feel like I am going to get every single fight wrong because they're all so hard. So like, maybe I'll just start with Cutelaba. But nah, he's gonna do it. You guys will see.
Yeah, man.
By the way, shout out Mike, who went 5-0 in the UFC last week and jumped into the lead.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I felt good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, boys. We are moving into
next? All right, boys. We'll see you next
fight.
week. Yeah, man. Oh, God, this fight is so good. Pedro Munoz taking on Kyler Phillips in the bantamweight division. Pedro, the young Punisher Munoz, 37 years old, out of São Paulo, Brazil. 20-8 with 2 no contests, 5 knockouts, 8 submission victories to his name. Looking to get back to the win column after losing to Chito Vera back in August. Kyler Phillips, who also fought back in August, the 28-year-old The Matrix, fighting out of Phoenix, Arizona. His record stands at 11-2 coming into this weekend with 7 finishes, 5 of them being knockouts, riding back-to-back wins. Most recently, again, defeating Raoni Barcelos by decision back in August. Mark, give us the odds, your tentative take and pick for this fight.
They are wildly wide. That was hard to get out of my mouth. Wildly wide.
Are they really?
Minus 250 for Kyler Phillips.
Wow.
Plus 200 for Pedro Munoz. I didn't see that coming for a guy who just arguably beat Chito Vera. I didn't think he did, but some people thought he did. So plus 200 against Kyler Phillips surprised me a bit. But yeah, size advantage for Kyler. He's 2 inches taller. He has a 7-inch reach, so that's pretty significant. And it's a tough call for me because Pedro Munoz is so damn good, and he's the exact type of guy who will play spoiler as an underdog. Every fight he's in seems to be close. There are people who thought he beat Frankie, as I just said. There are people who thought he beat Chito. He did just beat Chris Gutierrez right before that. But I have also long thought that Kyler Phillips had the talent to really break through in this division. Now, that's been delayed because of injuries and contaminated supplement that he popped for, and obviously the loss to Paiva hurt him. That should have been at least a draw. But, let's not forget, this is a kid who beat Song Yadong a few years back. The talent is clearly there, and 7 inches is a big reach advantage. I really think that size will help him here, especially with his kicks. And it should also help him to stay out of range for Pedro Munoz's vaunted calf kicks, at least somewhat, because he can be a little further away and still be doing damage. But then we circle back to the continual issue of Kyler Phillips, which even showed itself in his last win over Raoni Barcelos, which is that his cardio really dips in round 3. He just, I don't know what it is. He doesn't seem to have 15-minute cardio. So, and that's obviously what cost him against Paiva in that fight I just mentioned. So it's a tough call. It's a really tough call. If this was 5 rounds, I think I'd go Munoz just because that cardio would be too big of a concern. But 15 minutes, I've believed in the talent of Phillips for long enough that I want to say he'll finally break through when he gets his chance here. So that's what I'll say. And I will go UD for Phillips.
Okay, Omar?
It's a dangerous fight for Kyler Phillips because Pedro Munoz has the kind of experience that even in tough fights, he knows how to win, right? So it's a lot less about, in a lot of these situations, it can be a lot less about who wins the fight and about who is able to win, right? Because we're talking about the ability to take somebody down, nullify them, running things out, running the clock out. And not to say that Pedro Munoz takes advantage of these things, but if push comes to shove, especially with the way that a lot of guys like to take people down at the end of the round to try to solidify a very close round, these are things that are consistently on Pedro's mind as a veteran of the sport. And not only just as of the sport, but of the elite of the division. And I do think Kyler Phillips has the tools to beat Pedro Munoz. I frankly think Kyler Phillips has the tools to beat anybody in that division on any given day, given a good opportunity and a healthy training camp and blah, 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 blah. But skill for skill, Kyler Phillips is nasty. He definitely belongs to be there. Deserves to be there. Belongs to be there. That was terrible. I say all that to say that I would not be surprised if Pedro Munoz walks away with kind of a similar performance that he had against Chris Gutierrez, a guy that was up and coming, doing really well, and then kind of ran into a big reality check of where he was and where Pedro Munoz still is. And I think people have still written off Pedro Munoz even after, his wins, his recent wins, just because of the losses that he's had to a lot of the elite in the division. Again, all that to say, I do think Kyler Phillips has what it takes. I think Kyler Phillips is the next generation of fighter. I wouldn't be surprised if Pedro Munoz could walk away with a win, but I do think Kyler Phillips can get this done. So I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips, 29-28 decision.
You guys all know that I'm a big Kyler Phillips fan. Kyler Phillips is my pick. I will say unanimous decision for Kyler Phillips. No disrespect to Pedro Munoz. Let's go.
I was waiting for you to drop your famous line there.
No, I take that back. I take that back. In a few years, if he's got a title, then I'll walk that line back out there.
Yeah. No Steph Curry with the pot anymore.
Shut up. No. Okay. In the lightweight division, Mateusz Gamrot taking on Rafael dos Anjos. So Gamrot, The 33-year-old out of Poland. 23-2 with 1 no contest. 13 finishes. Wait, 13 finishes? Can I do math? Yes, 13 finishes. Coming off back-to-back wins over Jalen Turner and Rafael Fiziev back in September. Rafael dos Anjos, 39 years old out of Brazil, 32-15 as a pro. Wow, 32-15 as a pro. 16 finishes to his name. Most recently losing to Vicente Luque by decision back in August. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick for this fight.
God, this is such a good fight. Such a good fight. I love me some Mateusz Gamrot. I do think he's been a little inconsistent in his last couple fights. I don't think he won that Jalen Turner fight. I feel like I remember him not winning that Jalen Turner fight. And the Rafael Fiziev one, Rafael busted his own leg. So I don't mean anything to me. It was a good fight while it lasted, but as far as it being like a victory that I should be taking away something from, not so much. And then before that, lost his fight to Beneil Dariush. And obviously these are all solid folks in the division. Rafael dos Anjos is another one with veteran experience who kind of knows how to get things done. His grappling is probably what's going to be the best part of watching these two guys fight. I think there's going to be a lot of rolling involved. I think there's going to be a lot of level changing, a lot of reversals. I think a lot of this is probably going to be contested within grappling and clinch range as opposed to in long striking range, although I'm sure we'll have a couple of those types of exchanges as well. I just trust RDA here a little bit. And I'm gonna go with the veteran here. I'm gonna go with RDA here by unanimous decision, at least 29-28.
I have a feeling that this is going to be another case of disrespectfully wide odds in favor of Gamrot.
You would be right.
Hit me.
Minus 420 for Gamrot, plus 320 for RDA.
Wow, what the hell?
Yeah.
Yep.
I felt it. Yep.
You taking it?
That being said,
you go ahead.
I'll go. You guys know me. A guy who is 33 years old in Gamrot, who you can probably say, just going off, this point that he's in his career, he's in his physical prime, he's in the prime of his career, going up against a guy in RDA who's 39 years old. He turns 40 this fall of this year. Has a ton of miles on his body. Has a ton of fights on his record. He's a former champ. In most cases in this kind of fight, just on paper, just saying that to me, I'm like, you just got to go with the younger guy. In the words of Luke Thomas, I've said it before in this show, in the words of Luke Thomas, MMA is a sport where the young cannibalize the old. I didn't make that up. It's just the reality of it. The one thing that gives me pause in this matchup is that this has the potential to be a very grapple-heavy fight in which I think that age difference might get nullified a bit. But that being said, I'm going to make the safe pick here, and I'm going to go with Mateusz Gamrot, who I believe is just a phenom. He's one of the guys who is really knocking on the door of the upper echelon of lightweight, and it's his time. I do believe that this is going to be one of those fights where it kind of feels like a passing of the torch fight between the living legend in RDA and Gamrot getting over on him and really taking his place more and more in the upper echelon of the 155-pound division. So there you have it. Mark? Oh, I'll say Gamrot by decision.
Yes, you got that. Okay, 2 inches of height and only a ½ inch of reach on the Gamrot side of things. And yeah, this is obviously a great fight. This could be a headliner so easily. I mean, what are we? There's 8 fights left. They could all be headliners. That's how fucking good this card is. Prime for prime, I think I'd lean RDA here. I've never been and am still not hugely sold on Gamrot. Obviously, I realize he's very good. But unfortunately, we're just not not in the prime, as Mike alluded to. RDA is 39 years old. He's dropping back down now to 155 after a couple fights up at 170 again. Hopefully that's no issue for him. He has always kind of switched it back and forth. And he's still good as hell. Don't get me wrong. He just had a pretty close fight with Vicente Luque in his very last fight. But I don't know. I can't shake the thought that the youth of Gamrot is a big factor. I think he can push the pace a bit more. I think he's a little quicker. He is a maniac level scrambler. So I don't think that RDA will be able to change this fight with the grappling in his favor in terms of holding Gamrot down. I mean, is RDA capable of replicating the performance that Dariush just put on against Gamrot? Yeah, in a perfect world, I guess he is. He does have the skill set to pull that off. I just don't know if I think he's as quick as Dariush in the grappling transitions. Dariush stayed with Gamrot step for step and even a step ahead. And as elite as RDA is on the ground, I think I see him maybe being one notch behind in the speed of these transitions. And on the feet, we did see Gamrot having made some improvements last time out against Fiziev. Obviously, that was, an injury, and you can't take much from the result. But he was landing some clean shots on a much higher level striker in Fiziev. So, as Mike said, I think Gamrot is in his prime. He can mix it up. He can keep a pace. And I'm going to say he takes this by just kind of outworking RDA here. So I will go Mateusz Gamrot to win via UD. Mike, you're on mute, bud.
We're going to go over to the women's flyweight division with a bout between Caitlin. Oh, she has a name change. I forgot.
Yeah.
Caitlin, how do you say it?
Sermonara.
Caitlin Sermonara and Macy the Future Barber.
Yeah, gonna have to get used to that.
Caitlin, formerly Caitlin Chukagian, now Caitlin Sermonara. The blonde fighter is 35 years old and fights out of Jersey City, New Jersey. 18-5 as a pro, with 3 finishes on her record. Most recently, dropping a decision loss to Manon Fior back in October of 2022. And now she'll be stepping in to face Macy the Future Barber. The 25-year-old fighting out of Colorado, 13-2 as a pro, with 8 finishes on her record. She's riding a 5-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Most recently, TKOing Amanda Ribas this past June. Omar, go first.
Well, I think it's a very interesting matchup. I think that we have 2 stylistically very different fighters here. You have Caitlin Sermonara, who is trying to keep range, always trying to use her jab, always trying to use her front kicks to always keep that range lengthy. She's usually the very long fighter, generally the one with the most range, and she likes to utilize it. Macy Barber is the opposite of that. Macy Barber is a very compact woman, not very long in the arms, definitely needs to get inside, loves to take people down, loves to work on the ground. So we're going to have 2 very different, I think, type of fights here. And I think we might see a little bit more of a relatively classic striker versus grappler kind of deal going on here. But Macy Barber does have hands. I just think it's going to be difficult for Macy Barber to get close enough to use those hands effectively without her getting tagged up in the process. And I really do think that the path of least resistance is probably going to be on the ground. But Sermonara has had some really good success keeping her ass up off the ground for these years. I think she had one fight where it was a little rough for her. That might have been the Manon Fior fight, to be honest, the most recent fight. But either way, I think Macy Barber has gotten to a point now where she's really started to find a good hold of what her talents are and what she can do. So I'm going to go with Macy Barber here. I think she can get it done. I'll go with the unanimous decision, 29-28.
I'll go next. I think this is a fight where the promotion would love for Barber to take this. She is a decade younger. She's only 25 years old. She's not hard to look at. She's a pretty girl. She seems to have a great personality. And I think that the promotion seems to be chopping at the bit to give her a big promotional push, but she has to be winning fights, and she is on a win streak right now, but this would be a fantastic one for her to get over on. That being said, guys, I have a feeling that Caitlin Saramina is going to wear the black hat in this one, and she's going to be the party spoiler. And I think she's going to be key-eyeing her life away. And here's the main point I want to say, without I should stop making fun of her. Caitlin Saramina, no, God damn it. Say it again. Sermonara.
We think we should just call her Chukagian for the fucking time being.
For this episode.
Till we hear John Anik say it.
We will revert back to Chukagian. I mean, it's got to be Sermonara. Could it be Kermanara or Chermanara? Maybe.
I don't.
But what else would it be?
It has to be Sermonara.
It has to be. So Chukagian. The one thing I want to say about Chukagian is that I have always thought that she is deceptively strong because she is long and lean for the weight class. She's 5'9", and like I said, she's long, she's kind of wiry, but she is deceptively strong. And I think Macy's going to have a hard time, wrapping her up and getting the fight where Macy wants it to be. And I think that Sermonara is going to spoil the party, and I think she's going to walk away with a UD win. Mark, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
So Macy's a decent favorite. She's minus 205. Another one that I thought would be a bit tighter. Sermonara is plus 165. Size is on her side, 4 inches of height and 3 inches of reach for Caitlin. As you said, this is supposed to be the Macy Barber breakthrough fight here. And I thought I was going to be alone in this take, but I am going to pick against that. Not only has Macy Barber had a lot of close competitive fights on her run to this point, but she has fought a lot of girls who are willing to fight an ugly inside fight with her. And Caitlin Chukagian is not going to do that. If there is any girl who sticks strictly to an in-and-out range striking game plan in this division, it's Caitlin. And I'm just not sure I trust Macy Barber to win that fight. You know, she'll definitely have more power, which is the X factor that can change things if she lands something clean. But I'm not sure she can hold Caitlin in the clinch. I am not sure she can have a ton of success dragging her down and keeping her there. And because of that, I just think most of this fight's going to happen on the feet, with Caitlin just throwing more and being in and out and racking up some points. That's really how I see this thing. So I'm going to go with Caitlin to take 2 of these rounds and win a UD.
Wow. It feels good to be not alone. Okay, let's talk about this fucking fight right here. Oh my God. This is the fight that we need to see. In the heavyweight division, Curtis Blades taking on Jailton Almeida. Here we go. We are going to get some answers, gentlemen. Curtis Razor Blades, the 33-year-old out of Naperville, Illinois, 17-4 with 1 no contest. 12 of the 17 victories coming by way of knockout. Most recently, he got knocked out by a man named Sergey Pavlovich back in April, snapping a 3-fight win streak. And here we go. He'll be matching up with the rising star out of Brazil, Jailton Maladinho Almeida, 32 years old, like I said, out of Brazil. His record stands at 20 wins with 2 defeats. Man, who beat this guy? You know what I'm saying? Who the hell beat this guy?
Yeah, I always think that when I see his record.
Yeah, only 1 of his 20 victories went to the scorecards. 7 of them came by knockout. The other 12 by submission. Has not lost a fight since his last fight on Chuto Brazil back in January of 2018. He lost that fight by decision. The only other career loss, he did get knocked out at the 16-second mark by his opponent back in August of 2017. Hasn't lost since those 2 fights in 17 and 18. And he is undefeated in the UFC. Most recently, he got a dominant decision win over Derek Lewis back in November. Mark, start it this time. Give us the odds and your take and your pick.
Odds are nearly a pick 'em. Curtis Blades is a slight favorite at -120. Jailton Almeida is even money plus 100. 1 inch of height and 1 inch of reach for Curtis. Omar, wake up. This one is not easy, but I'm going to believe in Jailton Almeida. I'm not deterred by the Derek Lewis performance. And Curtis Blades is so good, man. His striking is improving. He's a beast of a wrestler. But Jailton is not bad on the feet. And I don't think Curtis has advanced to a point yet where he's going to have like a fight-changing advantage there. And then on the ground, I think the jiu-jitsu is the X factor here. You know, if Blades takes Almeida down, I see Almeida active and working from bottom, making Blades defend. If Almeida takes Blades down, which is certainly possible, I think he has an easier time on top. And that juxtaposition is because of the jiu-jitsu that is in Almeida's back pocket here. And not only that, but I think even on a stuffed takedown attempt for Almeida, he could still have a chance to take a back or grab a neck or who knows what to create a scramble and initiate a grappling position. So that's the difference to me. You know, it could go either way. Of course it could. I wish it was 5 rounds, which is crazy because we haven't even hit the fucking main card yet. But I'm going to go Jailton Almeida to win, and I am going to say he gets a sub in round 2.
Okay, Omar, take it.
Yeah, I don't hate that take. I also do think that Almeida will end up on top. I can't. It's not to say that Blades can't take him down or anything like that, but it just seems like there's a lot of dangerous avenues trying to play around with Jailton Almeida, and I just feel like Curtis Blades is probably going to feel more comfortable, if anything, on the ground. And I just think that Almeida just has a few more tools to kind of counter the things that he's looking to do on the ground. So I'm also going to go with Almeida by submission. I don't really think he goes 3 rounds, but I don't think he catches him in 1. So I will also go round 2.
I think that the closeness in odds is a reflection that either that Vegas doesn't know quite what to do with this fight, because I think from Almeida's point of view, Curtis Blades represents everything that an opponent of Almeida needs in order to potentially, get over on this guy. That being said, I'm going to go against the two of you here. This might be a little bit more of a desire pick of really wanting Curtis Blades to win this fight, but I do genuinely believe, sitting in this chair right now, that I think that Blades can, and I'm going to say that he will. Both of these guys are guys that generally enjoy the size advantage over just about anybody that they go against. They're both giants in there. I have a feeling that this is more of a feel for me. It's more of a feel, but it's okay because the odds are so close that I don't know. I'm going to go Blades. I think that Almeida is going to have the edge in athleticism. He might have the edge in hand speed and athleticism and striking, but I think that he is going to have a harder time figuring out the puzzle that is the giant standing in front of him. That is Curtis Blades, who has every bit of grappling ability that Almeida does. And I think that Almeida is going to walk away with a 3-round unanimous decision victory.
That Blades,
did I say that right?
You mean, right?
Blades. I meant Blades. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you had it right the first time. It's fine.
Okay. Let's see.
We've made it to the main card. There's so much left.
To the main card. All 5 of these could be main event fights. I mean, Blades and Almeida could have been a main event fight. Man. Okay, bantamweight division. Petr Yan versus Yadong Song. Petr Yan, a 31-year-old out of Russia, 16-5 as a pro with 8 finishes, 7 of those being knockouts. And Petr Yan is riding a 3-fight losing streak coming into this weekend, having lost 4 of his last 5. Now, one of those obviously was a DQ, and 2 of those losses also were splits, being against Sterling and O'Malley. So that's worth being said. But my God, the Petr Yan that fought Jimmy Rivera and Uriah Faber and Jose Aldo, my God, he beat the brakes off Jose Aldo. Would you ever think that Petr Yan would have lost 4 out of his last 5 fights? My God.
No, it's wild.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, Song Yadong, the Kung Fu Kid, 26 years old, out of China, 21-7 with 1 draw and 1 no contest, with 9 knockout victories on his record, riding back-to-back wins against Ricky Simon and Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez's fight being back in December, and now he's back to take on the always dangerous Russian striker. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick.
I think both of these guys are obviously pretty skilled in the striking. I don't know how much of them would want to go and take the fight down to the ground. Petr Yan, I would imagine, is probably not looking to take this down to the ground so much. Song Yadong's a little bit more opportunistic. He still works with Team Alpha Male, yeah? Do you guys know?
Yeah.
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm sure takedowns are pretty common in his day-to-day stuff. I like Petr Yan. I used to pick Petr Yan for just about everything, give or take. But Song Yadong has looked real fucking good lately, and he's looked better in each of his fights. And I think this is going to be a really good a good test to see where he's at. But I do think that he can walk away with this one a winner. So I'm going to go with Song Yadong here by unanimous decision.
I'm taking Song Yadong as well. And again, alluding to what I was just saying, I didn't think that I would ever be picking against Petr Yan. I mean, same as you, Omar. I'm kind of echoing the same sentiments. A couple years ago, I'm like, you never pick against Petr Yan. That man is an absolute. That man is he is a hitman. He's an assassin. But now look where we are. I'm Petr Yan, and I'm at the point now where I kind of need to see him win a fight, like convincingly, before I start to have some more confidence in him again as a pick. And paired with the fact that Song Yadong is a young, hungry, strong, aggressive, very good striker who has knockout power, as we've seen. And yeah, that's the pick. I'll say knockout. This would be handing him his first knockout. And I'm going to say that it's going to happen. And the skid is going to continue. So I'm going to say knockout. I'm going to say knockout in round 1 for Petr Yan. Wow. For Song Yadong. Okay, Mark.
Are we on the same timing? You guys just froze for so long for me, but then you came back talking and it seemed like you were still saying the same sentence. Okay, so we're good? Okay.
You're good.
We're good.
All right, same exact odds as the last fight. The favorite is -120, which is Petr Yan, and the underdog is +100 for Song Yadong. 1 inch of height for Song. The reach is identical. I don't know how the fuck to pick this fight. When it was first made, I was thinking Song. I feel like, that is the pick. He's on his way up. Yan is technically on his way down at the moment. That seems to be the trend. But man, the losses, as you said, it's O'Malley in a fight a lot of people thought he won. Moroz, who was just seemingly unbeatable at this point, and Aljo. Like, they're the 3 best bantamweights on the planet right now. And in between those fights, he was outclassing Corey fucking Sandhagen, who's filthy and who beat Song. So it's tough. Song is progressing so well, and he has huge potential at only 26 years old. But Yan is only 31. He's still in his prime. I don't think he has fallen off. And I'm going to say he bounces back here. As great as Song has been, beating Marlon Moraes and Ricky Simon and Chris Gutierrez, these guys are just not Petr Yan. They're not the technique level is different, and I think Jan is going to remind everyone who he is in this fight. I don't think Song has much success wrestling with Peter Yan, and in the striking, I think he's just going to be a bit out techniqued. And there's no size advantage for Song either, even though visually speaking in my brain, I thought there was going to be. So I'm a little surprised to see that there's not. I guess Song just feels bigger in there because of his power. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Petr Yan to win a UD and put himself back in the mix.
Like it. Okay, back-to-back welterweight bouts. Here we go. The first one being Gilbert Durinho Burns taking on Jack Della Maddalena. So Burns, the 37-year-old out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 22-6 with 6 knockouts and 9 submission victories, coming off of a UD loss against Bilal Muhammad back in May. Jack Della Maddalena, the 27-year-old out of Australia, 16-2 as a pro with 13 finishes and 11 of those being knockouts. Most recently earning a split decision win against Kevin Holland. Worth noting once again, Jack Della Maddalena lost his first 2 pro bouts and has not lost since. That being back in 2016, which means he's 16-2 and he's on a 16-fight pro win streak. And he is, of course, undefeated in the UFC, being 6-0 in the UFC now. Omar, start us off. Give us your take and your pick.
Who the fuck can pick this fight? I mean, this is... I don't even know how to properly break down this fight. Both of these guys are absolutely elite. Gilbert Burns needs no introduction. The man will stand and bang with you. The man will abuse you on the ground with his jiu-jitsu. Gilbert Burns is a problem everywhere. And short of the elite, Gilbert Burns generally doesn't lose too many fights, if any. You know, the Khamzat Chimaev thing, Gilbert Burns didn't play that one right. I think we all knew that. It sounds like he was hurt going into the Bilal fight, and he's looking for that one back. And not to make excuses or anything like that, but it just seems like Gilbert Burns is just the kind of fighter that when he's healthy seems to be pretty damn unstoppable. And Jack Della Maddalena, I would imagine, is pretty much the same as well. I mean, we've been really impressed with his performances as of late. His entire UFC run, frankly, has been pretty goddamn stellar. And he only really ran into trouble within the last fight. I don't even think the last 2. I think the last fight. And you know, we could. The last 2. The last one was the split, though, right?
The Hafez fight and then the Holland fight were both.
The Holland fight was the real sketchy one, though.
Yeah.
But either way, man, Maddalena is there to fight always. I don't see him getting through Burns right now, though. Like I said, I think Burns is world class. I think he's so well rounded, so disgustingly well rounded. For as good as his jiu-jitsu, or for as good as his striking is, his jiu-jitsu is that much better. So I'm gonna go with Gilbert Burns here. I think that, you know, I think both these guys are really tough. I think it'd be hard pressed to find a finish on Jack Della Maddalena, but I do think that Gilbert Burns could potentially ride out on the ground game for longer than necessary, but I do think it's going to get him to win at least 2 out of the 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Gilbert Burns by decision.
Okay, I'll go next, and I'm going to make this pick fast because my kid is crying.
Cool.
And I want to talk this out because to me, this has got to be a close fight on the Vegas odds. I'm guessing Burns is a slight favorite, but Maddalena has so much hype coming into this because he's such a dynamite striker. Jack Della Maddalena, he's like a magical fighter. Like, he just doesn't lose. And what really is happening is that he fucking cracks. And he doesn't really throw probing strikes. He goes in there and he tries to knock out his opponent with nearly every punch he throws. But then again, there's just too many ways for Burns to win this fight. So this is really hard to pick, man. This is hard to pick, but I'm going to go with Burns as well. I'm going to say Burns UD, and I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
You're good.
All right, so the odds are actually, they are close, but they're flipped from what Mike said. JDM is the favorite. He is minus 155, and Gilbert is plus 130 as the underdog. 1 inch of height and 2 inches of reach for Jack. I love Jack. As you guys know, we've been singing this man's praises for quite a while now on this show. But I'm having a hard time watching these last 2 performances against Basil Hafez and Kevin Holland and picking him to beat Gilbert friggin' Burns. It seems like the whole world is doing it. I'm just not ready to do it. And it kind of makes me feel a little bit better that neither were either one of you. You know, Gilbert is 7-3 as a welterweight, but one loss can be thrown out the window because it was the injury against Bilal where he had one arm. So that's 7-2. The other loss was the Chimaev fight, which was unreal. And then the other one was Usman in a title fight. Like, no one beats this dude other than the elite of the elite. And I know Jack is going to bring the pressure. He'll walk Gilbert down. He'll throw like in phone booth range. And I'm a little concerned about that because I feel like Gilbert is sometimes open to the straight. And Jack is so accurate and powerful. But we've seen Gilbert absorb damage and keep coming. We know the way he'll bite down and turn a fight into a war. And beyond that, Jack has a grappling advantage in a lot of his fights. He certainly does not against Gilbert Burns. Now, does that mean Gilbert chooses to just make it a stand-up fight, plain and simple? Maybe, in which case Jack is a lot more live. But if Gilbert's sitting there watching tape and seeing Basil Hafez take Jack down numerous times and nearly win because of it, are you going to tell me he ain't going to try to do it? Especially lately where he has seemed to have a renewed emphasis on his grappling and his jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to say he looks for it. I'm going to say he can do enough to get it done, and I will take Gilbert Burns to win a UD. So I'm shocked that we are unanimous on that.
Yeah, that was a rough. I mean, a lot of these fights are rough to pick, but this one I thought was especially a pain in the ass.
Just seeing Gilbert as an underdog feels wild. There's another one like that coming up, but we'll get to that. All right, Omar, what do you want to do? Do you want to pause and wait for Mike and stitch these together, or do you want to just go right into the next? Okay.
If we pause it all, I'm going to fall asleep.
All right. So we'll move to the next fight without Mike, unfortunately. We'll see if he's back in a minute here. He had to run and tend to his son. But the next one up is Kevin Holland taking on Michael Venom Page.
Hell yeah.
If you are a watcher of Bellator, you are very familiar with MVP. He is finally making the switch over to the UFC. It's a little bit late in his career, unfortunately. I'm actually trying to pull up how old he is now because I feel like he is up there. 36.
He's like 35. Yeah, 35.
Yeah, he's about to be 37 actually in like a month.
Oh.
So yeah, a little later than you would have liked to see. But he is here. I'll pull the mic for you guys quickly. He is 21-2 overall record, 13 knockouts, 3 submissions, fighting out of London, England. And his opponent is Kevin Holland, 25-10 with 1 no contest, 14 knockouts, 7 subs for Holland, fighting out of Fort Worth, Texas. I don't know what else Mike says, but that's good enough for me. Let's get into this thing. Omar, what do you got?
I'm glad we're finally here. Michael Venom Page, though, I guess at this point, though, is really here for a good time, not a long time. And so we're really here for big fights. I mean, if it takes him down the path of a title, even better. But I'm not even really sure if that's the real end all be all for him. Either way, this fight is absolutely fantastic. I love that this is introduction to the UFC. I just wonder what Kevin Holland's going to be there, right? Are we going to get the well-rounded Kevin Holland Kevin Holland? Or are we going to get the Kevin Holland that's like, well, I want to fight MVP at what he does best, and is just going to stand and bang with one of the most dangerous strikers in the MMA world right now? I don't know, man. I would like to think Kevin Holland learned his lesson doing that shit against Wonder Boy, but it's Kevin Holland, so it's very possible that he did not. And there's, you know, there's a little bit of a I would imagine of a want from just a striker's perspective to see how you match up to Michael Venom Page. So I think we might see some fireworks out there, man. I think this might get a little wild. But I do think that if Kevin Holland plays into Michael Venom Page's game, I think he's going to win a big prize in the form of a fist. So I'm going to go with Michael Venom Page here, man. I think he can get it done. I think there's going to be a lot of movement. I don't see Michael Venom Page necessarily sitting down on a lot of these shots that's really going to make Kevin Holland go to sleep. But I do think there's going to be a lot of countering, a lot of timing and distance on Michael Venom Page's side. So I'm going to go with MVP here by unanimous decision.
All right, very tight on this fight. The favorite is Kevin Holland. He's minus 135. MVP is plus 110. The height is exactly the same. Kevin Holland actually has 2 inches of reach over MVP, who's usually the longer guy in his fights. I no longer enjoy picking Kevin Holland fights because it's not fair. Like, there's really no point, because there's one Kevin Holland who actually uses all the tools that he has, and there's another Kevin Holland that actively decides not to do that. And we have to guess which one it's going to be, which is bullshit. Because, you know, like, he likes to observe. You kind of said this. He likes to observe what other people have. Like, he just gets a kick out of fighting and being in there with the other guy, and he almost like wants to see all the things that guy is capable of. So he doesn't want to, like, you know, do something that's going to make the guy struggle, because then he doesn't get to see the cool things that guy can do. Like, it's a very unique way that he approaches these fights. Like, he would fight a pro boxer and be like, oh, in MMA, and be like, all right, cool. Like, let me see them hands, and never even consider going for a takedown. And that's kind of what the deal is here with MVP. Like, if this was for life or death, I would absolutely pick Kevin Holland. I wouldn't even think about it, because he is a better martial artist overall. And if he wanted to, he could take MVP down, win the fight, and probably even submit him. But I can't trust that he's actually going to try to do that. And striking with MVP is fucking awful. It's awful. Now, I do like that they're basically the same size. Usually MVP has that advantage, and he's very used to leaning on it and doing terrible things to people's skulls and bodies, because he has such a range that he can dictate. Here he doesn't, so that's kind of interesting to see how he adjusts to that. And Kevin's obviously a great striker too. With power, he can catch MVP with a long shot that he's not used to dealing with, just as easily as MVP can catch him. But I just, again, like, if he wrestles, he wins, but I have to guess what he's going to do. And I think my guess is that he wants to watch the MVP show. And unfortunately, if he does that, it's going to be a MVP victory. So I will go MVP UD.
Man's going to be front row to his own ass beating.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm really getting frustrated by Holland, because he could be better than he is. But maybe this is the time. Maybe he's going to step up. Maybe he wants to make sure he defends the UFC's honor against the Bellator newcomer. All right. This stinks that we are having to move on here without Mike, and he has not got to discuss this fight. Let's see. Do we have any texts from him or anything of that nature? No, we do not.
I haven't seen anything.
I guess the crying continues over there. Not much we could do. All right. Well, I guess we got to keep it moving. Yeah?
Indeed.
All right. Co-main. Let me pull this up. Apologies. I was not ready to be the announcer here in place of Mike, so I didn't have these things pulled up. But we moved to the co-main. It is a special 5-round co-main, which is awesome. We have Benoit Saint-Denis the God of War, getting his shot against Dustin the Diamond Poirier, obviously one of the most established fighters in the UFC, arguably the best fighter to never win a title, depending who you ask. Benoit is fighting out of Bayonne, I guess you would say, France. He is 13-1-1, 4 knockouts, 9 submissions on his record. He has never gone to decision in any of his victories. And he stands across from Dustin Poirier, fighting, of course, out of Louisiana. The town on his shirt dog is definitely not the town he usually says. Where does he usually says Lafayette, right? And it's not what it says here. He is 29-8-1 no contest, 14 knockouts, 8 subs on his record. Obviously, the resume of Dustin goes on for days. He is coming off the knockout loss to Justin Gaethje in his last fight and trying to bounce back here and taking on the challenge finally here of fighting one of these up-and-coming guys. Obviously, Saint-Denis on a crazy run. He's won 5 in a row with 5 finishes. And this is going to be one hell of a fight. Omar, want to take it?
Yeah, I will add a very small tidbit here that does nothing for anybody, but since you brought it up, Karenkro, which I'm assuming is how that shit is pronounced, is a city on the outskirts of Lafayette Parish, Louisiana. Oh. So it's a suburb of the nearby city of Lafayette.
I guess he just always says Lafayette.
And knowing how involved Dustin is with his community and stuff like that, as I Googled this, there was apparently a recent murder of a high school student in the Kankero High School. So I wonder if there's going to be anything said about that by Dustin during this. This looked like this happened like yesterday. So
he just froze for me.
Yeah. So back to the fight. Dustin Poirier, beast. Benoit Saint-Denis, consistent of a beast. Obviously, we've been dealing with a different resume value, but the performances from Saint-Denis have been goddamn stellar. The win against Ismael Bonfim was absolutely insane. It didn't stop with Thiago Moises, and Matt Frivola got steamrolled by his own train. I mean, he's had an amazing run so far, but Dustin Poirier is legend. I mean, he is a walking legend. The man cannot be counted out by any stretch of the imagination. The man loses to the top of the division and nobody else at this point. I mean, the last time he's fought somebody not in the top was Michael Johnson. Lost to somebody not at the top was Michael Johnson. And that was, what year is it? 2024? That was 2016. It was forever ago at this point. And since that time has gone on to beat former champions and all kinds of things to solidify his place in MMA history. As far as the things I love about Dustin Poirier, striking on point, wrestling is there when he needs it. Submission game is 50-50 a lot of the time, if we're being honest. But I do trust him overall, and I think Benoit Saint-Denis is a very good fighter, but once you take away this early blitz, I think Dustin Poirier can come away with it, and I think especially in a 5-round fight, I think Dustin Poirier is adept enough to get through the first 2 disgusting rounds that this probably will be for him and work 3, 4, 5 to come away with the victory, maybe even a finish, but I'll be conservative here and just go with Dustin Poirier. Unanimous decision, 48-47.
Nice. So, yeah, this is the one where I was saying that there's someone on this card just seeing at big underdog odds that is just insane for me to see, which is Dustin Poirier. He is plus 175 as the underdog, and Benoit Saint-Denis is minus 215. So I don't know what it opened at. I don't know if it's money that has come in on Saint-Denis. Maybe it opened closer from Vegas, but pretty wild to see 2-1 for Saint-Denis. He is 2 inches taller, Saint-Denis. The reach is the same. And yeah, I'm not ready to do it. I'm just not ready to stop picking Dustin Poirier. I need to see more negatives to do that. And I love Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he's unbelievable. The God of War is the most perfect nickname for this dude. He's a Terminator. But Nicholas Stolze, Gabriel Miranda, Ismael Bonfim, Thiago Moises, and Matt Frivola. Those are not Dustin Poirier. They just aren't. It's possible that Benoit can take Dustin down and tap him, maybe even in a fight he's losing. That is possible, because when Dustin has an opponent who can hang on the feet and who can also mix in the takedowns, it's always a bit risky, because as I always say, Dustin is prone to getting a little too comfortable in trying to get back up, and it's possible to catch him in something. That's exactly what happened to him against Charles. So that possibility does exist, but there is just one glaring hole in Benoit Saint-Denis' game that I can't look past, and I always bring it up. And that's the fact that his game plan is to literally walk through strikes. He is not a sound defensive striker. He just eats shots dead in his face every single fight. Look at the Moises one as a fantastic example. He ate a bunch of clean shots from Thiago Moises, and yes, he walked through them. But again, Thiago Moises and Dustin Poirier are not the same. They're not the same in technique. They're not the same in setups. They're not the same in volume, in power, in any of it. In fact, the closest comparison to Dustin Poirier among guys that Benoit has fought is probably Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and he beat the absolute fuck out of Benoit Saint-Denis. Now, it was up a weight class, and it was on short notice. I fully get both of those things, and it was Saint-Denis' debut and everything. But still, that was a guy who was putting impactful danger in Benoit's face. And that's what I think Dustin can do. So, again, is there a world where he can get tapped because he makes some, I don't want to say lazy, but just mistake where he should have been more careful? Yeah, that's always a worry for me when he's fighting someone who has the ability to finish fight via submission. But I think that's the less likely outcome than Dustin simply putting hands in Benoit Saint-Denis' face. And I'm going to trust him to do that. So I will go round 3 TKO, Dustin Poirier. All right. I guess we're moving on without Mike again. What a shame. What are we going to do when he gets back? Have him just fucking say all the fights and have our shit be out of order? I feel like I want to hear what he's picking. Unless he's just never going to come back.
Yeah.
That's possible too. All right. Main event of the evening, the rematch. Sean O'Malley defending his bantamweight championship. Sugar Sean against Marlon Chito Vera, the only man to beat him, right? Sean only has one loss, right? Yeah. Had to fucking check my mind for a second there. I was thinking of the no contest. That's what threw me off. But yeah, against the only man to beat him. Obviously, it was that weird fight the first time where the Chito landed some leg kicks and whatever nerve in Sean's leg stopped responding and leg wasn't really working and ended up being a TKO as his movement got pretty limited. But we run it back here. So Sean O'Malley, the bantamweight champ, fighting out of Helena, Montana. 17-1 and 1 no contest, 12 knockouts, 1 submission, going against Marlon Chito Vera, fighting out of Ecuador. 23-8 and 1 draw, 8 knockouts, 10 submissions. He is coming off the win over Pedro Munoz that we talked about earlier. He kind of, I guess you got to say, got a little lucky here in that Sean wanted to get this one back against him. There were some other guys that could have gotten this title shot, and Sean kind of chose Chito, which was fair enough. Sean obviously coming off the knockout of Aljo to become the champ. And now here we are at his first title defense. What you think?
I think it's a great fight. I think the first one was super interesting. I think there's a little bit of drama here that I think everybody's here for, right? Sean O'Malley has been touting the 17-0, 18-0. I'm not sure what number he decided to stick with and then add the O there on top of it. But he's basically, had this narrative since that fight happened that that basically just didn't count. He didn't lose and his foot stopped working, and that's what happened. Obviously, that is what it is. You got some gamesmanship and all that other kind of stuff. But on Chito's end, Chito is I mean, you want to talk about a fighter that's relatively no nonsense. Chito Vera doesn't give a fuck about none of this. He doesn't care about the lights, the glitz, the glam, the media. He does not give a fuck. If you paid him his paycheck, he will go in the backyard and he will do exactly the same thing. He does not care. Dudes like Chito Vera are the ones you need to watch out for, man, because those are the dudes that are coming for your soul, and they are not playing around. Sean O'Malley is a performer. He is a showman, and that is not to disparage the technique and the actual fighting acumen that man brings to the cage, because he's absolutely fantastic. His ability to control his distance, to know where he is in space at all times, is absolutely phenomenal and very high class. But the approach to the game here is very, very different. And the real problem I have with Chito is his inconsistencies, his ability to lose rounds and then come back and win, but not all the time. And he's very much able to lose 3-4 rounds in a row trying to figure some shit out or not playing the game right or whatever it is. It doesn't always necessarily mean that Chito is a bad fighter in those moments or the worst fighter or anything like that. But it just means that the choices that he's making in those specific rounds are just not working in his favor to win those rounds. So I just think Sugar is just a little bit more adept at winning those rounds. I think as long as he doesn't get finished, I can't see him not winning 3 out of the 5 rounds. So I'm going to go with Sean here, man. I think he walks away with a decision win. I don't know if he finishes Chito. Has Chito ever been finished? That is a tall fucking order. No, right? Yeah, no. I'm not going with that. If he does that, I mean, amen. I mean, good on him, but I'm not putting chips on that one. So I'm going to go with Sugar Sean here by unanimous decision, 48-47, and still.
All right, Mike, we tried to delay the best that we could. Unfortunately, as you are hearing, you've missed a couple fights here, but let's do this if you're good with it. I didn't do this fight yet, the O'Malley Chito. So let me pitch it to you. That way you don't end up doing 3 in a row, and then I'll close out this. But then we got to come back to you and get your picks for the 2 that you missed before we end the show here.
Okay.
All right. So O'Malley Chito, what do you got?
My little guy, he's still back up, and I don't want him to start screaming again. I am solo, by the way. So this sucks. I might just bow out and text you my picks.
All right.
This is not going well.
I've been there.
Sorry, boys. I'll catch up with you guys, and to everyone watching, I'm sorry. That's just how it goes when you have a 10-month-old.
Well, you want to give us the 3 names? Who's the names? Holland, Page.
Holland. Confidently.
Poirier and Saint-Denis.
Saint-Denis.
Oh, what?
And then O'Malley Chito.
O'Malley. I'm going O'Malley. I will say this. I do think O'Malley hands Chito his first knockout loss.
Dude, don't steal my thunder. I'm fucking working my way up to that.
Okay. I gotta go.
All right, later.
Sorry, guys. Later.
You're good.
All right. So Mike goes Holland and Saint-Denis. Differed from me and Omar on both of those. I wish we could have heard his takes. But yeah, so let me just close it out here. Odds wise, Sean is -285. Chito is +225. 3 inches of height and 1.5 inches of reach for Sean. I love Chito. I really love Chito. But I don't think this is going to go his way. And I am even going as far as debating a finish, though Chito has never been finished in a 32-fight career. But, man, he is just so willing to eat shots. And Sean is so active and so elite with the angles and the accuracy of his shots that I could see Chito finally get turned off. Now, does it help Chito that Sean is primarily a boxer? Like, yes, he'll use his kicks, but they're not where the money is. And he's not going to wrestle Chito either. So Yeah, I think maybe it does. Like, this is not quite a Corey Sandhagen situation where Cheeto had so much trouble figuring out what was coming and how to approach that fight. You'd think that Cheeto could potentially get his reads down on Sean a little bit quicker. But even so, Sean's footwork and timing is so damn good that I'm not convinced it's going to be all that much easier. And maybe we could see a scenario where like that famous Cheeto Vera durability plays a huge factor and he's losing, but he's still coming. And that bell rings to start like round 5 and he's still fresh. And O'Malley's like, wow, this is what round 5 is like, huh? This has been a shitload of fighting. And something crazy happens. Like, I wouldn't say that's impossible. Sean has never seen these rounds. And if there was ever a guy that was going to survive to bring him into them, Cheeto's kind of that guy. But I'm not going to bet on that happening. And I think I am going to say that Sean actually puts Cheeto out. You know, maybe he takes some early shots and feels them and is like, all right, you know, yeah, he hits hard, but I can take these like I take most, and doesn't give Sean enough respect, and then just gets rocked by one and followed and stopped on some follow-up shots on the ground. Like something along those lines. I don't know why. I'm seeing it that Sean is going to just come out of this looking invincible, only for Rob to eat him next fight. But I will go Sean O'Malley, round 3, TKO.
You know, if I had to picture O'Malley beating Vera by knockout, I do picture it starting with some kind of rock or some kind of stun, some punch that just wobbles him.
Yes.
But I immediately see that being followed up with a 1-2. No time in between, no breathing in between. He immediately closes the distance and just puts 2 together real quick and just pops him all the way down onto the ground. Head hits the canvas kind of deal.
Yeah, you described it better than me. That's basically, if it happens, that's how I'm envisioning that first shot is just like one of those like off guard, like what the fuck was that shots, and then it's just the follow up happens too fast.
Just bouncing, just right hand, right, gets him a little fucked up, boom, and just hits him with another quick 1-2 after that and just sits him down.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, fucking bold pick for the guy that's never been finished, so maybe that ain't gonna happen, but we shall see.
Yeah.
All right,
I feel good about my decision pick.
It's fucking 1:07 a.m. I have to be up in 4.5 hours, basically. Shoot me in the fucking face. Okay. Thanks for listening. All right. So, yeah, Mike had a dip, as you guys heard, but that is where we will end this one. Enjoy the pay-per-view. Probably the best pay-per-view we've had, I mean, like arguably ever. I don't even know. This pay-per-view is fucking insane. But yeah, enjoy. Leave a comment. Let us know what you guys think. Hopefully a lot of these fights get us some engagement here where you guys might have takes on them, and we would love to hear them and go back and forth. So let us know. Thanks for checking us out, and we will see you next week.
Yes, sir. Stay awake for the rest of it. Boom.
Peace.